Yeah. So what exams did you take?
Uh, in journalism, like every semester we have different subjects. So right
Mm-hmm.
now we are done with print media and one other subject called Introduction to Advertising. So we are done with those two subjects as of now. And yeah, let's see what happens.
Very cool. What type of exams are they? Are they like essay, multiple choice?
Uh, they are like subjective. They have big questions. Like normally what happens is if you have a multiple choice exams, it is most probably going to happen online.
Okay.
But like these ones are offline exams, and like in summers 45 degrees, it gets really what do you say, intense for us, but we manage because like growing up in a tropical country, 40 degrees, 45 degrees, you get used to the heat.
Hey man, Florida's the same way. Like I'm teaching summer school and I took all the kids out and because it's 4 hours in the morning of like and it's remedial math and they're all orphans.
Oh
Now I
yeah.
was gonna ask you a question about how India handles their orphans, but because in Florida it's messed up. But anyways, I was taking them out just to like walk around and get some energy out because they're coming into high school. And man, they couldn't last more than like 5 minutes. It was so hot. They were all whining. I'm like, man, you need to toughen up. But yeah, it was really hot too. So I feel you.
I mean, like every generation has felt this. Like the next generation is going to be weaker than them in physical aspects, as well as in terms of tolerance of how much they are ready to take in for education. India has a
I
lot of
also,
homeless people, but we do like I am not aware of any such initiative. Some NGOs, like some non-government organizations, do teach these children, but from the government's end, like at least this is what I feel that past 2017, past 2018, actually, there have been numerous attempts to like flush out the population which is not uh, Indian by citizen. Like we have had influx of refugees from every country around us, so we are like trying to minimize the population as much as possible.
yeah, that's another something. It's something similar, but we actually in America, they say they always make it immigration a big issue, but we need immigrants right now because we have a declining demographic population. Our demographics are declining.
Oh,
Um, So, because our birth rate's below something called replacement level.
hmm,
So, we're going to need people, right? And I think our government knows that. Like, if we start deporting all the people that come from Central America, we can't grow crops because they're the ones that do the labor. Alabama found that out
hmm.
when they just were arresting all of their illegal immigrants. They then had a whole season where all their crops failed because no one was around to pick it. They tried to get prisoners, and the
Oh,
prisoners just sat around and smoked cigarettes. So, because you can't force them to do it, because then that's slavery in Alabama, used to
yeah.
be the heart of the
You
Confederacy.
you don't want to go in that lane again. Like not again. How many
Yeah.
times?
So, they then, for being such a conservative state, they quickly got rid of that rule. So, anyways, well, I hope your exams went well.
Yeah, they are going average, I would say, because like these are the exams where you don't care. Like even the most studious of the students, they do not actually take these exams seriously because the university knows and we know that these are just like just for doing something. Like if you have nothing to do in summers, but you don't want to close the
Mhm.
university, let's have extra exams. Why not? So
And it's always good to practice your
yeah,
writing.
like
If you're gonna get
definitely.
if you're gonna get into journalism, that is probably some good at like this Stephen King, the famous horror author that wrote It, that movie with the evil clown.
Yeah.
That's what he says. He has a great book called On Writing, where he just talks about writing, and that's one of his tricks. Is you just got to keep. It's like anything, you got to keep practicing it. So it's a good that you have that. So
Hmm.
um, hopefully you aced them.
Thank you
You
so
get
much.
grades on it.
Yeah, the last exam that I took, I got a 9.93 CGPA in that, like out of 10. So pretty good, I would say.
Oh, so y'all go out of 10.
Yeah, we our CGPA goes up to a 10.
Okay.
Like, that's
Do you, do you have A, B, C, and D? Or like,
grades. No, no,
yeah.
those are for
Okay.
the very rich elite kids, like who go to these schools where they don't want to. give you a number. You just don't want to say who's a winner, who's a
Oh,
loser, so you just like slide them a C minus or a D
huh.
minus, something like that. So it's like sometimes I look at these children and I feel like they could use a little bit of harshness. Like we were treated very harshly, and these kids are like very gentle.
So I agree. Now I'm not advocating for any sort of like what you were telling me with like them hitting y'all, but like grade wise, yeah, y'all need feedback. And Elon Musk, for example, is created a online school, and the whole concept is based on failure. Like you're
Oh,
supposed to fail, so then they can find out what you don't know and then teach you. It's something I'm trying to incorporate. Like failure is not always a bad thing. It can be depending on the situation, right? But most of the time, especially when you're learning, it's not bad. You know,
exactly.
you shouldn't be punished if you're trying to learn, right? You know.
Like I mean, I
Um,
visited my school on some sports event and I saw like kids playing basketball, and like I just asked the coach in a funny way, like, "Sir, which team is winning?" And the teacher was like, "There are no winners here. We are all having fun." Okay, but which team is having more fun? Like, you can't expect
uh,
a bunch of kids to understand these concepts, which are like in your head. Like there should be no competition. Everybody's special. No, they're not.
that's
We
interesting. That culture came over to India. That everyone's a winner mentality, because that was my generation to a bit,
okay.
right? Like now we're back, and I'm all for it. We're back to being super competitive. You know.
Like it's
Um,
funny how culture like travels like faster in the West, and like the countries in the East take their time to catch up to these things. It's fascinating.
India probably has a very Western education system, I would imagine.
Yeah, we actually have like that's how you identify how elite you actually are and how good you are going to do in your life. If you are like as close to a Western society as possible, like the upper middle class in India, or in fact the middle class, they are dying to become as American as possible. They want their children to be able to speak English. They want to send them to an English medium school. They want their education to be as close to foreign as possible.
I get that.
Like
It's
America
just, yeah, like we
resounds
talked.
like America
Mhm.
resembles success. Like America has this like this vibe to it. Like anything American must mean successful. So like aim for an American company, go for an American university. America means success in India.
That's just so wild because we talked about this before, but like America's doomsday, everyone, like Americans love to complain, and they're always like, "Oh, we're falling apart." It's like we've had 14 straight decades of GDP growth. We've never left a decade without being in better shape, and yet every decade it's, "Oh man, we're falling apart." It's like, no, we're not. Everything's like, it doesn't matter who's in charge. You can have a monkey humping a football, but when you have our geography where we don't have to really worry about a neighbor, right?
Yeah,
We have two coasts. We have the Mississippi River Valley, good farmland, and good fisheries. Like it's hard to mess this up. So,
like yeah, I think
um,
it is common in both the countries that we somewhere underappreciate the things that we do have and overvalue the things that we do not. Because like that is
yeah,
how politicians are going to convince you to vote for them, because if everything is
huh.
good, then you don't actually need legislation. That's the problem.
Yeah, yeah. That you know what? That is probably a product of democracy. Like where we gotta emphasize the problem so that you can vote for me and I
Exactly.
will solve
This was
it.
actually one of the topics that me and my friends were talking about, that suppose if under some ideal condition the conflict with India and Pakistan is solved, then what will the
Okay.
government have? The government will have no excuse. Like right now, if you
I
question
know.
the government on anything, like why am I not getting electricity or water or medicine, the only reply they have is troops are dying on the border. We have border dispute. Do you think your concern is bigger? No, we have troops dying on the border. But once the conflict is solved, now there are no troops dying on the border. Now why am I not getting electricity? Who is causing this? So now they will have no answer. So it is good that you have a conflict, because then
Well, I
politicians,
know they would say it's the Chinese.
yeah, then
They would
then
go,
it's
it's China's fault. No, no, am I wrong?
it's always one external enemy and one internal enemy. That is what gets democracy
Oh,
going. That's how democracy works. One internal enemy, one external enemy. That's it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Wow. So now I'm thinking that's us too. It's always the other side. Because last night we had our January 6th committee
Yeah,
hearings,
I heard about that.
and they were pretty, yeah, they were a big deal, way bigger of a deal than I thought they would be. Um, the right wing here tried to do like, oh, it's just, they just tried to do their normal thing, and it fell flat because it hit like the middle class of America was, it worked, whatever they did. And Liz Cheney, Dick Cheney's daughter, was very good.
Hmm.
Like, you don't mess with the Cheneys. Like, they're just,
They have a history, I would say.
yes, yes. He shot a person in the face, and that person apologized to him. So they were hunting, and he pulled his shotgun to like chase something, and he shot the dude it was buckshot, so it only
Oh.
like spreads on your face like that. And the guy left the hospital saying, you media are just treating, Vice President Cheney so bad, and I would just like to apologize to him for everything he's gone through.
Oh man.
All right. So are we recording this? How's this work?
I would like to think I'm streaming this. Like I am streaming this. Let's see how this goes.
Oh,
Like you
okay.
can record it from your end because like you said, internet is very tricky. Like especially in India, like internet like fluctuates. So I would not count on my CPU to handle all of that or my internet. Like, actually, it's very good internet.
Yeah.
Like it is good Wi-Fi. Like it's just right over here, but still I have my concerns.
America, for the capital we should have way better internet than we do. It's an issue no one really talks about. Um, like if lightning hits around me, if I just go out, it's that. So like they apparently put us on some other network or something. I don't know. They sent me some email. Um, so if that one goes, I'll probably have to be on my phone, and that's okay, whatever. But um, so what you described to me with the Indian exams, it sounded like a blue book exam. You ever heard of that?
No. What are those?
In America, when I was in school at Florida State, it'd be like a blue construction sheet of paper, but they had like Florida State on it. And it would say blue book and like put your name on it and subject. On the inside was notebook paper. So it was like stapled together, and then they would charge $32 for one of them. And you had to use it. There was no like if you didn't use it, they would like you fail. It was one of the greatest scams I've ever seen. But yeah, it would be like your final exam in any social science or psychology class would be 4 questions, and you choose two to answer, and you should probably get 2 to 3 pages each. Like
Okay.
yeah.
Like
But it would be stuff you would learn, all year, and you should really know in depth, right?
like
Like I had no
we
problem.
we had that in our school. Like I went to like one of those IB schools, the rich ones, and they would have like the notebooks. Like they were very good notebooks, but they had the school's logo printed on them, and on every single page they would have the school's logo. So you had to use those notebooks in particular. So yeah, university schools they tend to do this. Education works better
So
like a mafia. Like education works so much better when you compare it to like kind of a mafia organization.
yeah, well, I've been thinking about things in America lately, and I really do think that our public schools are good. We have problems, but private schools, there's only like the best schools in my area are all magnet programs public schools. They have waiting lists. All the elite people like try to bribe their way in, and sometimes you have to know the right person for that
Yeah.
to work, and no actual bribes, probably, who knows. But um like Governor DeSantis is from this county.
Oh.
So if you are well connected in the Republican Party, because the school I work at has, and that's what I'm teaching next year, has a Cambridge program. I'm teaching Cambridge psychology, and so it's a small program at a very like Title One school, we call it. We get federal money because we're below the poverty line. So then we have all these elite kids coming too. So looking forward to it next.
Like it's going to be a good experience to have like a mix of kids based on economy. Like I think for America, the division should not only be across race. Like the more inclusivity we have, the more diversity we have on basis of economics, on basis of countries, on basis of language, the better the people have perspective over things. Like as for schools in India,
Yeah.
like private is the way to go if you want to have a good education, and by good I mean the minimum of standard of education. You have to go
Hmm.
private. You can't expect, but except if you are in like the capital like Delhi, except if you're like from any other city than Delhi, I would suggest you to go to a good private school, invest in education. Like no matter how much it costs, that pays, because it will pay you later on in life.
Yeah.
The skill gap is like very big between the children who study in private schools and those who study in public schools.
Mm. In America, you would go to private school for like three reasons: to avoid all the state tests because you don't have to take them if you're in private school; to have a low class size because they usually have 12 to 14 kids in like a class. I usually have like 28 to 30. Um, and um, to avoid so-called bad kids, right? Like seriously, it's they ever all the private schools in the South started out as segregation
uh,
academies. Basically, it was a way to get away from minorities. It's less so that now, but I think it's good. Like you were just saying, I think it's better for a kid to be around so-called bad kids because then you learn how to deal with people. And if you
yeah,
never pick up that skill, you're going to get scammed.
like these are called street smarts. You need to have them.
Yes.
Like in
Um,
India, private schools, like the last two reasons remain the same. Like to like obviously get better education, to avoid bad influences. But the first reason, like actually private schools do more rigorous tests and prepare you better for like
wow.
competitions. Because in public schools, the teachers are so lethargic and so lazy, they will not care if you are
Really?
cheating or what. Cheating is like such a common thing in Indian exams. Like parents come to the windows of the classes and like let
What?
children teach. Like cheat. Why will you study? You cheat now. Cheat. The teacher tells the answer to the students.
So
Nobody
parents
cares.
come to the window.
And tell the answers to the students. Like this happened, I think last to last
Huh.
year. Like you guys have the LSATs for I think law exams and like
Yes.
SATs for college university admissions. We have something called the
Mm-hmm.
IIT JEE. So JEE is joint entrance exam. Like that exam is given by almost every single child who graduates from school to get into an engineering college. And last to last year, the guy who topped the exam in all of the country, he was arrested because he was boasting about how he actually did not give the exam. Like some other person gave the exam in his place while he was busy watching a movie in a home in a theater, and the other guy scored 99%. But the sad thing is, since this was a fraud, they both got arrested. The saddest thing is the kid who actually
Uh,
gave the exam in his place, he got paid to give the exam, but at least mention his name. He actually topped. Like at least give that guy some credit. He actually topped the
yeah.
exam.
Yeah.
But like both of them were arrested. So scams in the exams are very
Wow.
common.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because yeah, you go to that's tragic. But yeah, you go to private school to avoid tests around here, and the teachers, because of the way pay is structured, they're actually probably more lazy. And I mean, it depends. If it's like the most elite private schools, Wesley Chapel,
Hmm.
by me, it's about an hour away. It's in the middle of nowhere, Florida. It's like a castle. They have good teachers, but their pay is similar to mine though. They make about 10. All other private school teachers make $10,000 to $15,000 less than I do.
Okay.
So, and we have in our public schools, we have so much pressure to deliver that maybe that has made it better because you can't, if you're really mean to students, they can really get back at you by just tanking your test. And I've seen it happen to where they kids just go, F this teacher, I'm going to get these answers wrong on purpose. I'm already failing this class. Who cares? And then some kid will get like a zero, where it's like the odds on getting a zero on a test are so small. That means that kid actively got the wrong answers. So,
Like in
um,
US, the kids have so much more freedom in class. Like like you said, in India, like whether
You
you are
do.
in a public school or in a private school, your salaries are fixed, and so are your bonuses. So like the teachers have like what will you do to me? Like if you study, then also I get salary. If you don't study, then also I get salary. So the only way for a student to like in very good private schools, like the one I went to, we could just like write an application, and since our school had like more than 150 CCTV cameras. Like every class had two CCTV cameras, so everything was monitored, every single thing. So if a teacher was
In the
misbehaving
classroom?
in the classroom, everywhere except for the bathrooms,
Wow.
every like
Yeah.
very. I went to a very privileged school. Like we had 25 children in class. In India, that is like a big thing to just have 25 students in one class. And in between those 25 students, we had two air conditioners in every single class. So very
Oh wow.
very gentle upbringing I've went through, and now to from that to college, it's like a whole new world. But like the thing is, ki, if you are in India, if you are, it doesn't matter what teacher you are, whether you are in government or in private, you have all the powers, and like students cannot get to you unless you are in one of the top most elite schools, because then the children can actually write an application, and if the review committee finds that you have been violating some student or any code of ethics that the school
Yeah.
has, you can get fired for that.
Yeah. That's wild. That's why we have a teacher shortage in America is we have a lot of accountability that and it doesn't meet the amount of money they pay you because they treat you like a stock, like they want results, right? And it's like you're paying me, you're not paying me to like deliver, investment returns. You're paying me to teach, and I get it. And if you're in, I know the response would be, well, this is our future. You need to do a great job, and tell me I do, but I try. But you know, but then when you ask, all right, give me a raise, they're like, well, then they give you some excuse. It's like, well, it's not matching, right? So it's sort of a paradox in America, but with everything here, everyone's negative on it when they shouldn't be.
Like I mean,
You know,
the good teachers in India, they make like incredible amounts of money. Like I had this chemistry teacher, I'll not
wow.
name him. Like he like something happened to him. He got so paranoid, he bought one iPhone just to like keep for himself, and then he bought an iPhone to give to the principal of the previous school he worked in. And like then too he had like
He's just buying iPhones for people.
he is in like I don't know how loaded he was. Like every single day he would buy us lunch, like the students. Like we would just go to the lab, and he was like, anybody hungry? And some children would raise their hand like, okay, treat on me. So he would like, if you're a good teacher in India, you can make like in dollars, you can expect to make around $1,000 per month. That is like very high salary. Like uh, the 90% of this country makes less than $300 a month, less than
Oh
$300
wow.
a
So
month,
it's
90% of the country. So if you are making more than $300 a month, you are already in the top 10. So our teachers,
wow.
the teachers I studied from, they made around $1,000 a month from like the 5-6 hours of school. And then if you could take like coaching classes for 1 to 2 hours in some good coaching like Resonance or Akash big institutes, you could make additional $1,000 there as well. $2,000 monthly, it's like huge amount for any Indian teacher. So if you're a good teacher,
Wow.
you can
That's
have like a following, a cult of students standing right behind you.
it's interesting because I'm starting to sort of see that in my own realm. Like in high school, because I haven't always taught high school social studies. This is just the last 2 years I have. Before I was in middle schools, and then my first 3 years I was in a high school, and all those kids still keep. They're all like old now, not old, but like they're probably 6 or 7 years older than you, maybe 5. They graduated in 2008, so whatever that is. So 14 years plus 18. Oh wow, they are old. Anyways, yeah, they still keep in touch. And now these kids, it's like if you are good and you try, because so many teachers, they're teachers, they try, but they don't do the personable part either, right? To get the kids on your side and have them try, and while also selling them that you have a good future,
Hmm.
because there's just a lot of mental problems right now with this upcoming generation. Um, and just no one tells them your future's bright. even the smart kids, they're just hearing climate change the whole time. And
Like
what do I?
this exists as a problem with us also. Like no teacher in our university has ever told us that you guys are gonna be fine. Like the every single day we go to college and we get to hear, why didn't you go to Delhi? Why didn't you go to this university? Why didn't you go to the top elite universities? Why didn't you go out of this country? And like one insult we get to hear is that you will like they say in Hindi कि 5,000 की नौकरी करोगे. What that means is you will end up making 5,000 rupees a month. That's all you'll be worth. 5,000 rupees is less than $100 a month. It's like $80 a month. So this is
They
what we
say
get
that to y'all?
on our face. You guys will make $80 a month. Why? What is your life worth? $80 a month. Why are you here?
Jeez.
there
So
there
yeah,
are
they're
students
big
who are
on
making more than that.
negative reinforcement.
There are students
Sorry.
in class who are making more than that already. First year college students, they're making more than that, and they just sit and laugh. Like yes sir, you're right.
um, yeah, that's negative reinforcement, which you should really only use in certain specific situations where it's like behavior disrupting others from learning. Um, like, oh, if you end up, if you keep doing that, you could end up in trouble with the law. Like, that's the only thing I've ever said. Like, outside of that, you have to, especially now, because I didn't always do this, but, the girls, you know what cutting is? So, mostly girls do this. I've seen boys do it. Not seen them, but I see the scars. They'll cut like with like a razor blade, like 4 lines, 3 lines, and they do it to feel pain.
Oh, self harm.
And
Yeah, self harm. I'm well aware. I've had my
okay,
fair
does
share
that
of
happen in India?
I have had my fair share of experiences with that. Like it is mandatory for every teenage boy to become emo if you are 17 or 18 years of age. So you have to be. If you're not emo, you don't have depth in your life. It is very important. It is essential. It is essential for a high schooler to fall in love, and if he feels that he has been wronged, he has to do self harm. It is mandatory. If you're not doing it, you're not living your life to the fullest. You have to do it. It's mandatory.
Wow. So I think I could be wrong, but I think in America that movement sort of died off before the pandemic, but now it's something different. I don't know what it is. Like it's like depression. I don't know. It's not, but it's not like woe is me. I lost my girlfriend or I can't find. It's not. It's not that. It's my life. It's nihilism. It's my life sucks. There's no God. We're all gonna die. It's like so deeply dark, but it's really easily cured if you just give them a positive pep talk on the future. And or talk about like the Millerites, the Jehovah's Witnesses that were predicting the end of the world in America 150 years ago. It's like, no, this is our tradition. You'll be fine. But if you ever see an American that's like your age, if you check on their arm, especially the girls, and you see like little, almost like a tribal tattoo, sort of, if they do it and like the skin pops up a little bit, like a scar. That's how you know that they were once, cutting. It's a strange phenomenon, but again, I would rather them do that than commit suicide. So,
Like
unfortunately, right?
for boys in India, like they would do it on the forearms, like here.
Oh, okay.
Some would go as far as to like write the name of the person, like both boys and girls, they would write the name of the person with like a very sharp object, a very blunt object, which like, so they'll write the name in blood of the person that they feel wronged
Well,
them,
that's
or
pretty
like
hard.
they're in love with someone. So yeah, it is, I would say it is a phase. Like I'm not encouraging anybody to do anything like that, but if somebody is going through that, I would rather leave them alone. Let them do it. Let them explore what they are doing, because I've seen
Yes.
kids go through that. I have been part of it. I'll not decline it. So yeah, like let children be. That's because
Yes.
I wanted to ask you something very interesting. Like since you mentioned these
Yes.
problems, what would you say was the most common problem with children when you were a student, and now when you see these children go, like are those problems same or similar, or are they completely different in nature?
Um, complete, mostly different. When I was growing up, the bullying was more intense. You had to learn how to fight, no matter your size. Like in like middle school, I remember I got in major trouble because I moved to a middle school that was in a more wealthier area, and I didn't know the culture. Where I was from, if you talk trash, it meant fighting. This kid in health class called me a fat Jewish pig. And I didn't think I was fat at the time. Who knows? But I was not Jewish nor a pig. So I'm like, hey, don't call me that. And of course, he did like 3 more times. So I just got up and I clocked him. And, I got in major trouble for that. But no one messed with me after that. But then I saw that kid again doing it to other kids. And so I would make sure to always go over there when I saw him doing that and say, how you doing, bud? And give him a nice hearty slap on the back. And he would like walk away. But yeah, it's when I was around, I think probably before me it was more physical. It's more mental. Like when I was in school, the bullying now it seems to be online more. That's where it transitioned to. And then the other problem, it really wasn't depression when I was growing up. It was underage, unprotected sex. We had a lot of pregnant girls, and then a lot of alcohol and drug abuse. That seems to have really gone, like, it's always around, right? But not really to the extent. The only thing they really abuse now is vaping. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Like,
I get it.
So that's good, but then it was replaced with this internet sort of depression culture, because a lot of people in my generation ended up with addictive habits. Like my college roommate passed away from doing too much of a drug called Oxycontin, which is a painkiller. It wrecked Florida because they used to give them away like candy at the doctors, because the doctors would get paid by the pharmaceutical company to give them out. Right?
Doctors
It was
are
so
sponsored.
Yes. And so, your pinky hurts. Here's 180 Oxycontin that could kill, 150 people probably.
Let's privatize healthcare. What could go wrong?
We're coming to a head with that. Our hospitals have, they really failed during the pandemic. Like, they really showed their nature. Like, because so many people ended up, with such atrocious bills. If they just went in to see stayed one night in the hospital, next thing you know, they're like 80 grand in debt. It's ridiculous.
If majority of the population is one hospital bill away from becoming bankrupt, like that says a lot about a country. Especially America. Like you guys have so much money. Where does it go? What do you guys do with it?
The military. Straight up
course.
the military. We like to blow things up. So, but here's the trick though, because this is what I'm currently sort of doing. Because when I got the vaccine, I passed out while teaching, and unbeknownst to me, I was put in the ambulance, an ambulance ride is so expensive. It's like 10 to 12 grand. And I would have been like, I told my principal, drive me there, man. Don't take me in that ambulance. They don't do anything. And then they charge you as much as a car, for a car ride. And then the doctor there didn't do anything. He's like, oh, it's because you're dehydrated. I'm like, no, it's the vaccine reaction. Nope, because it was so politically charged in the hospitals, they couldn't even look into it. And then I get this bill. But the thing is, after 5 years, if you don't pay it, it just goes away. They can try to sue you, but if you're a teacher, they don't even get close to that because they have PR problems right now. The last thing they want on the news is hospital suing teacher. So that's the dirty way out. So you can either write to them and just say, can you please forgive my bill? And they actually get money from charities and the government to do that. Or you can do what I did and just ghost them and then finally contact them and negotiate it down to 5% of what it is. That's why things are so messed up, that's the system. You have all these different people negotiating these costs that are so tremendous that if you're a really honest person and you think that's the real cost, your budget's done, right? So you have to treat them like they treat you in America. So it's messed up. It makes no sense. Like you were saying, we have all this capital, yet we're not putting it to really help citizens. But then again, the citizens themselves aren't voting to fix it.
Yeah,
So
that is like a big problem with democracies is that it is so hard to convince like the majority of population that this is the right thing. It is so hard to get people to agree to one thing. Like, it's such a
and we're
headache.
currently battling the healthcare and pharmaceutical industrial complex, which just pumps money into propaganda because about 60% of Americans do want that. And I think it's probably higher than that now because of how bad the hospitals have failed, because not letting people in to see their grandparents, when they didn't even know if the person had COVID or if they didn't or what they were dying from, it was such a mess. Um, we actually had another shooting at a hospital in Tulsa, Oklahoma last week, where the guy brought in an AK-47 and killed the doctor, and it was over something like that. Yeah, so we're starting to kill our doctors now. So that's how I'm sort of taking. All right, things are changing a bit, like with our attitude.
America needs to find a brown country to bomb. Otherwise, its people are going to start killing themselves. Draft people in the military. Let
um, I don't know if there's an answer to. Well, we need our mental institutions back. We got rid of them in the 1970s, and the healthcare. If you're a kid and you're mentally ill, is me, right? It's the teacher, our social or the social worker, but they're usually so overwhelmed. We have a psychologist, but they're so overwhelmed. Like they'll have like 5,000 kids in their caseload. It's like, that's impossible. So, or it's the cops, right? So it's not, so kids can eat like that kid that did Uvalde, he slipped through the cracks and then just, you know, there were definitely signs. It's just we don't have enough people on it. And again, it goes back to that question. We have the money. What are we doing? So it was also a failure of those cops in a major way, because we had Parkland shooting in
yeah.
Miami like 3 or 4 years ago. And because this is DeSantis's county I live in, our sheriff headed the Florida response team. And I was actually part of that. Like it was just this big committee and talking about what to do. And the sheriff really was the one just doing making all the plans. But I'll give it to him. He did a really good job. Like we do drills, 2 drills every month. They just show up to a school and say there's a shooter and see how we respond and judge us. They see if all the doors are locked, if the locking mechanisms work. And then they have a strike team that they don't notify about this that has to get there in 2 minutes. And they do. So like when I heard that happen in Texas, I'm like, I thought Texas was cowboys and would have no, their people were scared outside. And what we do, because I was a mock shooter in a drill one Saturday, like 3 years ago. I was trying to set a trap for him. I was like, oh, I'm a school shooter. This is a Saturday, no students. They send in one team in the front that's making some noise. So you're like, oh, I'm going to get them. Another team comes from behind you. And I remember all I heard was a guy go, bang. And I'm like, what? He goes, you're dead. I'm like, oh, didn't even see him come, right? Like they snuck up right behind me. And so we send 2 of these tactical teams now. They have a whole system to unlock the doors and lock them. So if they need to come in, because that was another problem. They had to wait for some janitor to open up that elementary school. And they waited 45 minutes.
During an active shooting?
At Uvalde, yeah, in Texas. The cops were outside for 45 minutes waiting. Like the guy that was in charge wasn't a Texas sheriff. He was a school police chief. And they're notoriously, they're not in paycheck. I hate to say that. or they're a cop that used to do a very tough line of um, policing, and they just want to work with kids now. Those are the really good SROs, but there's some of them that are lazy. And that guy seemed like he's lazy. He didn't know what to do. The border patrol in that Texas shooting, because it's only like 20 minutes from the border, they were off duty. They showed up and they were the ones that went in and killed the guy. So the cops of that town, the school police, never even really went in. It was
Oh,
the border patrol, off-duty border patrol. Two guys went in, formed a little team with some of the cops that stopped listening to their captain, and then went in. One of them got shot in the head. It grazed him, so he didn't die. And then his buddy killed the guy like that, and then boom, it's done. So who knows how many kids, those like poor kids' lives could have been saved if they just were brave or did their actual job. So it's a real tragedy. Um, and it needs to change some of our gun regulations. It won't, but it should.
so
Do you know who Matthew?
sorry.
Yeah,
No,
I was say, do you know who Matthew McConaughey is?
yeah, yeah. I've heard several of his speeches, and like I've seen John Oliver making fun of him, so I have an idea.
So he actually did a really good speech the other day because he's from that town. His mom taught at the school next to that elementary school. So he gave this great speech. I was very surprised about guns because he's a big gun owner. And I'll see if I can send you the link. It's
Yeah, sure.
really good.
Hmm. Like I was asking, where does like, do you think when it comes to like school shootings, like first of all, my deepest condolences to all those who lost their lives. It was a tragic event, but
It's, it nearly makes you numb now,
like how do you
unfortunately.
think, like somewhere I feel like if one of the school children is doing this, somewhere I feel that the class, like I get it, the counselors, the guidance counselors, the therapists, the teachers, they might not have time to, you know, get the signs or with this, but how do so many students miss out obvious signs of some of, like, this guy must be friends with somebody in that classroom, right? How do the students
Mm-hmm.
miss something so obvious?
Ooh, that's a good question. So he may not have had friends, or he might have been under a just brainstorming, like an anonymous sort of internet name, but they might have just not taken it seriously enough. Or I would have to look more into that because that's a good question. Um,
Because
because he was
as like
pushing.
as far as teenagers are concerned, like as much as I know teenagers in India, they would actually come to the class and ask you next day, why did you change your profile photo? Oh, I saw the reel you posted, or like, I like the dance that you posted on Instagram or something like that. So children communicate about every single thing that one of their friends do, like, who did you text, who did you call? So people share these stories. Like, is it possible for somebody to not have friends in 2022 in a high school?
It is possible, unfortunately. Um, it is possible. Rare, but yeah, it is definitely possible. Just because we're more disconnected, especially since COVID. Um, but because yeah, you can, like, let's say I have a class of like 25 kids. Um, I could definitely see one or two students not really being in the community, the online community of everyone else. And they may also, if they are posting those things, they might be doing under a pseudonym so other kids can't see it. But that's something I'm gonna probably look into to try to figure out like exactly why didn't, because he was messaging this girl, but she lived in like Sweden or something. It's an odd story. It's But here's the thing: he actually got arrested in middle school for making a threat to his middle school. Why were the school? It really does seem like a school police just botch, just mess up. Like, why weren't they just keeping an eye? Why weren't they watching his profiles?
Yeah, like
Um,
focus on prevention rather than cure. Like this could have been avoided, not
oh yeah,
like easily. It's one of your classmates. How do you miss something so obvious? Like what we do in our classrooms, we don't have a gun issue here in India. Nobody's allowed to own guns, but like since we are journalists, every other week we have this activity where like the teacher would come, she would ask any one random child to like, and she will point to another random child and she will say, tell me everything you know about this person. So they will tell, okay, this person is named this, I know this,
Oh,
I
that's
know his
cool.
school, I know he likes this, I know she likes them. So children actually converse. Like, I'm not saying that we are the best friends and like we share every single thing. No, there are groups. Yes, I understand there are some popular kids, there are some average kids, there are the nerds and all
Yeah.
those stereotypes. But we would not miss these kind of signs that, you know, some child might be going through some stuff which would end up like severely harming others. Like, even if somebody is doing rash driving, we talk to that person. Like one of our, like, unfortunately some of our classmates had been in a road accident recently, and even though their phones got destroyed, we did not have their cell phone numbers. Some of our classmates went to the hospital to see them. We, you know, we shared the information, we got to know, and everybody, the class connected, everybody knew this, they all called them to check up on them, and like things went great from there on onwards.
So remember how you were saying that American students have a lot of freedom?
Yeah.
I'm a believer in everything being a double-edged sword, good and bad, just so yeah, you have a lot of freedom. So you also have the freedom to not participate or not interact with other people, unfortunately. And I think that is where that pitfall is, to where if you want to sit in the corner, and it's not like at my high school kids are like excluding anyone, because I actually think it's a very positive school culture. But if you want to not, if you're an introvert and you don't want to talk to the group, you can. I try to actively get involved with everyone, and you know, and what that y'all do is, that's a very good thing. Of, I never even thought about doing that. Like, all right, who is this person? What do they do? Where they? That's a really cool thing. Because I just try to remember that. I don't have other students. That's a good way to build class culture.
Like
So
it's
yeah, that's
part
the
of
problem.
like it's part of your awareness. So, like, I remember when I was in school, we used to have like quizzes, you know, the quizzes which would like really helpful. Like any day some kid would ask, you know, how many fire extinguishers are there on the third floor, uh, where are the extinguishers placed, how many stairs does it take for you to get from this class to this lab. You know, these kind of questions make you aware about your surroundings, your situational awareness. Like it's not technically self-defense, but situational awareness can like really help children to get actively involved with things.
We actually do that with our school drills. But you know, and I would say the kids do something similar like that amongst themselves. But again, you have the option socially to not, to just say, I'm cool, I'm gonna go over here on my phone, and look up people getting their heads chopped off or something, if you're like a disturbed person. So I actually caught a kid doing that one time. Like, he was on his phone, he wasn't should be. I'm like, and I went, I looked what he was doing. I'm like, what? And I called and I don't like doing this, but I had to call a cop. And man, like, hey, give him a psychological check. And he actually ended up getting something called Baker acted. We have a law in Florida called the Baker Act. What that does is, if we think you're a harm to yourself or others, like mentally, we can put you into a mental asylum for 2 days. And our mental asylums is a hospital. They just put you in the hospital and they put a seatbelt on you and lock it so you
Okay.
can't run away. And then they bring in a psychologist. And it's so standardized now that if you are unfortunately mentally ill, you know what to say to get out of it. That's another problem. Like, what does India do for mentally ill people?
Nothing.
Nothing.
we,
Well, same
we,
as America.
we don't acknowledge that. We just don't. If you are
So,
talking about any kind of mental disease, no, these are all excuses to not study. Open 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 the goddamn physics book and start studying. We do not have guns. That's the problem. If ever India
yeah.
has that kind of freedom, there would be civil wars every single day. People would kill each
Oh,
other over the slightest of intolerances. I have seen people get so mad if you just honk at them, because India is constantly honking. So people are so mad at each other. Like, there is physics test. Do physics, do maths. 90% of the children study out of frustration. They don't study out of the love for the subject. No, they want to study because they have nothing better to do. We can't shoot. If we could shoot, we would not produce so many engineers and doctors. We would not infiltrate the US and Canada and Europe in bulks like we do. We would be busy fighting. We are not busy fighting. That's why we are doing this.
So I don't ever. That's interesting. I don't ever think America. If we ever do outlaw guns to own recreationally, it's gonna take decades. I like right now. It's just not happening because even Democrats don't want it. Like I'm actually, I don't want them outlawed. I want them to actually enforce the laws we have, which they don't do. Like this kid at 18 was able to go buy a Daniel Defense AR-15. It's called. It's one. I don't know where he got this money. That's a 10 grand weapon. That's the big question. How did he get this machine gun? Or it's not. It's a semi-automatic. And how come he was not on the list? Because he should have been flagged as mentally ill from his thing he did in middle school. So what went wrong? And no one's focusing on that part. It's like we have laws, we don't enforce them. Also, we have these things called ghost guns. You ever heard of them?
No.
So you know what a 3D printer is, right?
Yeah, I do.
So we have these people that just get a chunk of plastic or some type of plastic like material and they have a gun design and then they 3D print it and you can't trace them. So that's what we're doing now, by the way. So that's why you really can't outlaw them, because then you're going to have a bunch of people with these plastic guns running around. And the dangerous part is they get through the metal detectors. That's the frightening part.
This
right
is
now.
Technology gone berserk.
Well, actually, no, they don't get through the metal detectors because of the bullets, I think. I have to look into it more, but yeah. Another thing I'll send you, there's a whole documentary or interview with this guy that invented the ghost gun. So the government has no idea what to do because you can't stop it unless you stop people having 3D printers.
I mean, so like I find it so like as an outsider, what exactly is the Second Amendment and why are guns so vital to being an American? What is it about guns that is so American in idea?
It goes back to the Revolution and the British saying we couldn't have guns. So it just became an essential part of our culture of you can't tell me I can't have one. Also, it was vital in our expansion. Someone had to use a tool to get rid of those savages out in the country, those natives. That was a joke.
Get it.
So it was important to have a gun back in the day, right? You had a lot of dangers if you were living out in the frontier. You had to hunt, so hunting was a big thing. No, I don't think the founders ever imagined where these muskets would go, right? Because they passed it. You can.
Yeah.
So what it is it talks about a well-regulated militia. Our Supreme Court decided that meant all guns or all handguns and semi-automatic rifles. It gets into the weeds a little bit, but they're the ones that made that interpretation, because originally the government said you're allowed to own a gun basically if you were part of the state militia that they brought up to hunt criminals, because they didn't have police back in the day, to fight off Native Americans, to capture escaped slaves. I'm just trying to think of all the reasons. To hunt. Oh, in Florida, we had a problem with this now extinct animal called the red wolf.
Okay.
They were this big wolves, and they would come and like go after kids. So if that happened, the people would gather all the men of the town together, and they would just go and kill as many wolves as they could find. And we wiped them out within 10 years. It's sad, but I also understand it, because if
obviously, like if you're surrounded with wild animals, you have to like protect yourself. You'll have to shoot them down. Like those must have been the days, like such good recreational activities. Hunting. Like as long as the species is not endangered, I think hunting is a good way to like blow off some steam.
Yeah. We also have these shooting ranges in America.
Yeah, those I've heard of. I
They have
would
any of those in India?
only for military personnel, like they and their families, they can go and like practice on those fields, but they are totally restricted for any other person. Like we also had the like when we were colonized by the British, they had a firearms act which prohibited Indians from owning firearms, but like I think it was the Gandhian movement where like non-violence became such a big thing for us that we never tried to like weaponize the people. I think it was because the government wanted more control over us. Because the
Mm-hmm.
kind of scams that Indian government has pulled in the past, like ridiculous amounts of compromise with our national security. So if the people found out about those, people would kill them anyway. So I think that was a way to protect themselves that they did not allow Indians to own firearms.
So when were they outlawed? Say that again. I'm sorry.
Around 1800s, 1870s, something like that.
Okay. It's interesting how that shapes things. So what I shared with you, this is the local gun range by me. It's called Reload. I
Okay.
know the person that owns this.
Okay.
It is it's gigantic. So um won't go there. So you have all those lanes
Okay.
there, and that's the whole capacity. The guy's trying to get a tank, by the way, that you can go and just fire off. That right there is the virtual simulator.
Okay.
And you can see in the lower right, they will attach this shock system to you
Hmm.
to where, and they'll put you in a simulated gunfight or like a shooting scenario. And if you get shot, it tases you.
It's like a 3D. It's like a virtual reality first-person shooter game. Like that's
Yeah. So those lower things on the right are the little things that
okay.
tase you.
This
So
is
it's like,
such an interesting business model.
oh, they make, I would say pretty good money because all of those bullets cost so much money. That's how you could actually control guns if you wanted to in America. Um, is Can you see me now? Is everything good?
Yeah, yeah, all good.
Um, and that's what Obama did. And I'm actually for this. It's they buy like independently. The government buys up all the bullets, and what that does is drive the price up and create shortages. So that prevents the amount of actual. So they can't do anything with guns, but they can. No one said they can't buy the bullets. And so under Obama, it was hard to find bullets, and a lot of people were getting mad. But it's as soon as what was that? The Sandy Hook shooting that occurred, you couldn't find bullets anywhere.
Oh,
Obama straight up went, "We're buying all the bullets," and they literally are sitting in our armory in Washington D.C. Like we have so much ammo to go shoot brown people overseas with now. It's wild, but that's how they could. That's one way they control it, and I have a feeling Biden is starting to do it because my buddy's complaining that the business is down because he has to charge people so much for these bullets for AR-15s, which are like $12 a piece, and you shoot 20 at a time. So what is that? 240 bucks just to go
okay.
shooting now. So like if they're $12 a piece and you shoot 20 off, it's $240. So it's now becoming an elitist thing, and most of the American really wealthy people they're not really into that. This it's more of a working class, middle class thing.
Men with suits don't really like pick up guns and start shooting things.
Yeah, I mean, but there are of course there's always the exceptions, and they're the ones that are the biggest characters. So yeah, it's such a complex issue, and anytime I hear a politician talk about it and give some simple solution, it's like, man, it's just stop. It's not gonna whatever you're saying, it's not gonna work. The courts will strike it down. You'll get voted out. You're just saying it to appeal to people's emotions, so you're lying. But why I sent you McConaughey's speech. Why I liked his speech is he's a gun owner, and he says it from his heart. It's a very emotional speech, and what he says to fix it is actual real solutions that we could actually do instead of just saying ban all guns because Good luck with that. There's a gun behind every blade of grass in this country.
Like I think
Um,
prohibition is such like there is a state in India called Bihar, and they were having problems with people causing domestic violence and all kinds of ruckus after consuming alcohol. So, like, what was the easiest way out of this? The easiest, simplest solution? Ban alcohol. They did not realize people are the problem. Alcohol was not the problem. Alcohol is available in all over India. No other state has this levels of violence that Bihar had. The government needs
so
to
you're,
realize
you're,
nuance.
your area, so you're where you live?
No, no. It's a neighboring state of mine. I live in
Okay.
UP.
Okay.
It's a neighboring state of mine. So they have like banned alcohol in that state, and now people are consuming more alcohol and paying more for it because now it is smuggled.
Oh, so they created a market and they created more money for criminals, basically,
Like I live in
or
UP.
corrupted
I'm a neighboring state. So if I have a shop in the on the border, like more people can come to the border now. They can drink. Like if there is a line, like this side is Bihar, this side is UP, the cops can only like do what? Like give one bottle to the cop. The cops are also happy. Like, I have seen such ridiculous examples of this. Like I think last to last year there was a news that 24,000 liters of alcohol was seized by the cops, and when they were asked where it is, they said, "Oh, the rats drank it." I have seen it.
um,
I have seen standard like, fifth standard students come up to a better excuse of why you did not do the homework. My rats ate it.
so like the news asked them, and that's what they said.
No, no. The government of India asked them. The news covered the entire incident.
Oh, those rats got into it, and boy, did they like that rum
Yeah,
and just drank it all up.
they drank.
It's wow, that's wild. Yeah,
So
when America tried to promote alcohol temperance, is what we called it, it created the mafia. That's how the gangsters came around, was because we made alcohol illegal. And some counties are still, we call them dry counties. And a good business idea is, and this is what people do, is you put a liquor store right on that border, like what you were saying earlier, and just all the people from that county, then just, it's such a pointless law now. So I get what you're saying, man. It's democratic governments can be silly a lot of the times, you
every
know.
time somebody tries to find a simple solution to a complex problem, people suffer more.
And for all these people with these advanced degrees from these, because I've started to realize these Ivy League schools, these elite schools, sometimes I think get worse educations than our state universities, because some of the people I talk to from them, it's like talking to a bag of air.
Like these are the
And
ones. These are the people who say stuff like, "If you have no bread, then eat cake." Marie Antoinette kind of people. Like they are so not in touch with the ground at all.
they're not even in touch with their own brain. It's there's a lot of them are just so dumb. Like Kamala Harris, for example, I don't think she is that dumb, but she's dumb socially. Pete Buttigieg, another Democrat, I think is stupid. I'm like, how do these people get where they got? Oh, they're connected. Like Bill Clinton, for all of his faults.
Yeah. Okay.
You there, bud?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm here. I'm here.
Okay. Bill Clinton, for all of his faults, has a really good story, and he's such an intelligent person. His mom was a casino dealer, a blackjack dealer at a casino. Raised by pretty much a single mom. His dad was an alcoholic that crashed his car. He flew through the window and drowned in 1 inch of water. That's Bill Clinton's dad. Then he had a stepdad that would beat his mom, and they had a kid together, and that's his half brother, Roger. And they grew up really poor in Arkansas. And that's why Bill Clinton worked so hard to get out of that. And when he turned 18, he told his stepdad, he kicked the stepdad out, like, I'm in charge now. And his real last name is not Clinton. His real name is William Jefferson. The stepdad he kicked out, his last name is Clinton. But because his half brother had that last name, he told his half brother, listen, I'm changing my last name to Clinton because we're brothers. We're not half brothers. We're brothers. And then he embarked on his law career and then went into politics. And the reason he was able to win the presidency in 92 against the Bush dynasty that was, incumbent president, they didn't see him coming is because he's just so intelligent. And there's no one like that now. So
He
I
was
don't know if
honest.
it's,
Like Bill Clinton was honest. That's something.
yeah, he's a womanizer, but whatever. I would take that and you be smart than you be a Mike Pence, a great moral person, even though his morality helped in the end, but overall, just stupid.
Like,
Um,
I mean, we look for the wrong criterias and the wrong characteristics while selecting our national leaders. That's the problem. If we were to analyze what work they are supposed to do, we would not be looking at things like is the person, how many times he has been married, or like how does he treat his children, which community he's from. It doesn't matter. What matters is, can he do what his job
yeah,
asks him to. That's all that matters.
and that's why a Bill Clinton, even a Barack Obama, is such a rarity because they also figure out that political aspect. Like this woman, that this was way back in the day. This woman was talking about how she couldn't afford food to Bill Clinton at like a rally, and he got on one knee and told her, "I've been there. I am so sorry for you. If I'm president, I will work my hardest to ensure you have something to eat every day," and then gave her a hug. George Bush was going around not even shaking hands, and then here's a guy saying, "I feel your pain," and hugging you. That he understood that social. He had such a high social intelligence and just managerial intelligence that I don't know.
he
Maybe it's
knew
rare.
he knew how to carry himself around people or media.
Yeah, and I just wonder why people don't study that and just go, "Okay, that's what I can do." Because I don't know who's going to be president. like we, Kamala Harris can't. Biden's going to be too old. The Pete Buttigieg, who's the Secretary of the Interior or something like that, and he's gay. Nothing, that's whatever. But he uses that for political advantage. It's not like, okay, I'm gay. Who cares? It's no, you flaunt it, but in a weird way. It's like,
this
ugh.
this is something we study in like our advertisement class. Is that like
Mm-hmm.
there are these big brands like Mercedes and like whatnot, since Pride Month is going on. So all these companies have like rainbow in their DPs, and they're like celebrating all for Pride, this and that. The same company will have Pride going on in Europe and USA, but in the Middle East, nothing. Not a word, not a tweet, nothing.
I think in America, at least, all that is starting to end. Like, because when Disney is telling you pride, it's no longer cool, right? It's like we had a couple in our local baseball team. We had about half the team refuse to wear the pride hat. Like they had a Tampa Bay like rainbow hat, and they're like, "We're not wearing that." First time I've ever seen anyone do that. Like, because that's dangerous. That's real dangerous to do. And there was a little pushback online, but nothing happened. I'm like, oh, okay, this is dying down now. And I think that's good. And I'm not talking it, we don't want I never want anyone who's gay to like ever be bullied or anything like that. But it's a weird thing to worship. Like it's like imagine worshiping heterosexuals. Like it's heterosexual pride month. That's just strange. It's just weird, you know? Um,
Like
it should
what I love about this
pride.
entire thing, what the capitalists have thought, like no matter how civilization, we will make a profit out of this. Like it's Pride Month, here, eat this cake. This cake has all the colors. More expensive. Eat this. It's a celebration now.
Yeah, it's you're right about that. It's a money thing. They're even in the stock market. There's something called ESG, which is like everyone calls it a social credit score. It's not really that. It's how it's your HR, your human resources aspect of your company, and the reason they are evaluated on that, it's so they can avoid lawsuits. So it makes a little bit of sense, but at the same time, if all these companies just ran with it, right? Like Disney got itself into a corner, like in this state in Florida, like it's going to lose a lot of subsidies, which are if we give money, we could basically give Disney a bunch of money because they brought us a lot, right? Like everyone knows Florida, Mickey Mouse. Well, Governor DeSantis he warned them, and they were attacking him from Burbank, California, and trying to undermine him. And you just don't like DeSantis. I can see him as a president. He's just ruthless. Like he will call you out and then do things that actively like he's probably the best politician we have, and he's not psychotic like Trump a little bit. He's not a bad person, like, because he's a little bit older than me, but I know some people. He grew up 20 miles away from me, so I know some people that knew him. He's not a bad person. It's just he does have anger issues apparently, and he can be vengeful. What person isn't?
And any person can be, just like give them Twitter.
Well, here's an example. This Republican was trying to eliminate the teacher pension. He was lying, saying that it was insolvent and wasting all this money. It didn't have money because they took money out of it to pay for roads. And then it was invested in such good investments, it made us money back within like 6 months. So no problem. He was just doing it politically, but that's dangerous for this guy. DeSantis being a populist and doing attacking all the curriculum in schools, did not want to deal with money when teachers already don't make a lot, and that would make him look really bad. So DeSantis, he didn't even veto it. He eliminated the bill somehow in the legislature. He pressured all of the Republicans. He called that guy into his office, removed him. I don't know how he did this because it's not legal. He had all of his committee assignments removed. He was censured, meaning he couldn't talk anymore for the rest of the year. And apparently DeSantis was screaming at him, like, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. Like, and I'm like, well, at least he gets things done and he protected my pension. So, I think Trump is going to be sidelined by this committee. It's just seeming that way. And Americans are pretty tired of the drama. Like, he wasn't a bad president. It's just, he was dramatic, and toxic.
So where do you think America is going to head in the future? Are they going to lean more heavily on the right, or are they going to be center, or like, does left exist in America, or like it's right or center?
The left is weird. So the left is divided into two camps. You have the actual left, which it's the Bernie Sanders, if you know who that is.
Yeah, I know.
It's the progressives, the people that want universal health care. They want free college. They want to lower the military budget and then use that money to get social spending. And I would say the majority of Democrats agree with them, but the other side is the corporate Democrats. All the people in power, Nancy Pelosi, Joe Biden, Chuck Schumer, and they are heavily funded by corporations, and they just say they'll do something, then don't do it. Oh, we're going to pass universal health care, and then it's just too hard to do. It's like, you have a majority. No, it's not. And they are the ones pushing this woke nonsense because they know they did not achieve real social change. So instead, let's focus on this stuff, this victim ideology. That's the problem with the left, is they're weaponizing the culture war to then ignore the progressives because the corporations don't want universal health care. That's a lot of money for pharmaceutical companies, which are very powerful.
Like, I mean, when we talk about like universal healthcare, I think what America does not understand is that in countries which provide universal healthcare, like Europe or like Japan, for example, they also regulate the food intake and air and every other element of things that you consume very heavily. So America is a country that relies on freedom. Like, you have the freedom to eat fast food, and the consequence of that is that you get sick and then you have to pay for it. If you guys were to ever get universal healthcare, I think this is what will happen. Like in Japan, the government will heavily regulate the fast food, and they will regulate what you can eat, what you can drink. So they will
Yeah,
like
you're probably
take that
right.
responsibility. They will take the responsibility of your health into their hands because they are the ones who have to pay for it, right? I do not think that Americans will ever agree to like, let go of their freedom to eat fat cheese.
Yeah, Obama's wife did that in school lunches, and now they're awful. No salt, and they're ugh. So yeah, that's a good point.
Like, as a
But
teenager,
something needs.
like as a teenager, I could say like, don't mess with my food. If I willingly want to eat junk food, let me be. Just let me be. Don't
Yeah,
mess with my
yeah.
lunch.
Um, that's what they. Yeah, that's what they did. It's just with the healthcare system, though. It's just so we need to do something. It's broken. I don't know what it is because I actually agree with your point. That's a good point. So that's when we need like an FDR or even a Nixon for all of his craziness. He actually had good actual. He was a good he what am I trying to say? He was very good at government. He wasn't a good person, but his policies. He was good at policies. That's what I'm trying to say. He was trying to break into people's places and steal their information, and he was dirty. But then he ran a good government and he got stuff done, and the policies helped people. He made a law that said if you are handicapped, you have to be able to go to a public school if you want. Because before then, we would say nope, nope, and now, but he passed it in a way that actually helps schools. So that's what I'm saying. Like he was good at policy. So we need something like that. Some person to figure out a way to fix this free market because I would argue it's not a free market right now. Because if you, let's for this is an example of what I'm saying. If you go and ask, all right, how much was my surgery? And they tell you, oh, it's $1.50. You don't know if it's $1.50, $150, $150,000, or $150 million. That's our healthcare system. And you could get it for $1.50, and I could get it for $150,000 based on your insurance and their negotiations. Like that's where it's messed up. But you do have a very valid point with, yeah, you don't want them regulating health because then there'll be more shootings in America. Like try to take away McDonald's, you'll see the revolvers come out. Um, so that's a good point. And with the Republicans right now, Trump has them, right? But his grip is slowly loosening because the way he handled after his presidency hasn't been smart. He should have accepted, hey, you know what? We barely lost, but we're coming back in the next election. And he could even have said, oh, this was election fraud, but you don't do what he's done because if he started focus on building the future, he would be he is the top candidate right now, but he wouldn't have all these people coming after him, and there'd be a lot more positive. So he's messed up it's still 2 years out. Anything could happen. But I think DeSantis is slowly taking over that party.
Hmm?
He's pro-environment. He's pro-business. He's pro-education. Um, you know, I'm a Democrat, but I don't dislike the guy. He did a good job with Florida, and I recognize good, leadership, and I can easily see him being president. The Democrats don't have anyone, but like Bill Clinton came out of nowhere back in the day, so someone can come out of nowhere. I liked Andrew Yang, but his plan for universal basic income would not be good. There's a woman called Tulsi Gabbard. You ever heard of her?
No.
She's a ex-Marine lady, senator from Hawaii, and she's really good. She's a little too much pro-Russia for my taste, but yeah, it's an interesting time because Trump changed everything, and we're in the middle of this shift and after effects. So, I think America's future is bright because of our position in the world, our capital and our wealth, our culture, even though we never think this. But, so I think, it'll be all right. It's just, it'll really help if someone that's competent comes around. So, what about India? What do you think about y'all's future with the government?
uh, like
Or do
right
you, is
now,
this, yeah?
I think it's going to shift even more rightwards. Like the shift to right will continue, and as the climate crisis increases, I think we will see more xenophobia. We will see more
Hmm.
hatred for people who are not ethnically like ethnic Indians. I don't like.
Okay.
We will
Like
see,
Hindus
yeah,
or
Hindus, yeah, Hindus. We will see more division based on religion. Like that is going to be the primary uh, measure of differentiation. So first will be religion, and as soon as we are done with that, we will. The second thing that we will go is economical. So people who lives in slum, people who have less income, they will get a lot of heat because of it, and then we will have the non-vegetarians. So
the
layer
what?
the non-vegetarians. So the
Okay.
it will keep on happening. I think that is where if we do not uh, immediately recognize the problem and adapt to a more moderate way of exploring our political differences. Like right now the right is so dominant in India. Like every single day there is some dude with a TV channel who's like popping up and claiming that India will become an Islamic country. Like Hindus need to do this, Hindus need to do that. Like this guy
Yeah.
has nothing better to do. What happened? Did a Muslim guy run away with his daughter or what? Why is he so upset? Why is he so obsessed with one singular issue every single time? The most prominent issues in the past 2 months have been there was this mosque, and
Hmm.
some demolition took place, and apparently a form of it's called a shivling. It's something similar to an Indian idol, a Hindu idol. So a Hindu
Okay.
idol was discovered under an Islamic construction piece, and ever
Huh.
since then the argument is like nonsensical argument, completely nonsensical.
So why
Like
is that a big deal?
I don't know. I don't understand. Like entire media is going crazy that these Islamic invaders, they came to this country and they have taken the land of the temples. There is some kind of social justice which is trying to get back the land for temples. Like we will break down all the mosques and we will make temples in their place.
Oh wow.
Why? What will that accomplish?
Yeah. Um, no, that'll just spiral downwards, right? Like it'll create a you get me, I get you mentality.
Like I saw this an amazing cartoon in which like the first prime minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he was standing there and he was looking through a telescope and he was like looking upwards, seeing the future and the bright. And then there was a cartoon of our current prime minister. He's like digging underground, looking for stuff underground. So these kind of the takes on the government, they actually, we do not need to dig into our past so much. Nobody cares. Like people, especially people of my generation. I am a Hindu. I hardly go to a temple. I know a friend of mine who's Muslim. He has never once been to a mosque. We do have bigger concerns. We have, college to attend. We have college from 9 to 5. Who do you think has time for God? I'm not saying I have left God. No, nobody can leave their
Mhm.
God apparently. It's just that our way of connecting with our gods do not rely on going to a geographical location and like protecting that geographical location. We don't have the stand your ground laws for those temples or mosques
So
anymore.
yeah, I'm the same way. So basically, leaving institutionalized religion doesn't mean you left religion.
Yeah.
It's just institution that may, like I know here in the South, with our churches, got pretty toxic. You know, like the Southern Baptist churches in the South just had a huge sex scandal with they were covering it up. Similar to the Catholic, if you remember that a couple of years ago, the Catholics, it's very bad, and it's just like yeah, yeah, just stay away, you know. And they were the ones when after 9/11 that were pushing. We need to burn down the mosques in America. So I can relate. It's way different, I know, in India, but I can relate to that. Like I remember a mosque in Clearwater, Florida, was firebombed after like 3 times after 9/11, to the point that. And then the weird thing is though, then this other group with AR-15s, this community group went out there and protected it. So there's just guns and firebombs everywhere. But it made me feel better about America a little bit. It's like, okay, at least some people are trying to help those people out. You know, the cops should be. I don't know where the hell they were, but yeah, I couldn't imagine though in India with that issue, right?
Like
Like,
it is so
I don't know what
hard
the
to
solution is.
it's so hard to defend either side. Like you can't actually defend the Islamic militia, because to be honest, yes, they are involved in a lot of damage done to public property, and we have seen
Hmm.
time and again in Kashmir. We've seen this in Delhi, we've seen this a lot of cities and states where Islamic communities have been very easily radicalized and used against Indian population, against Indian military. And we've also seen the government, like, this is what the government does. The government does not go out and start violence, but if they see that the violence is happening from one side to another, they step backwards. They will not do
Oh,
anything. They will not stop the Hindus. If they find out that the Hindus are ever like attacking the Muslims, they will just stay back. They will not do anything. So it is not a program. It is not sponsored by the state, but the state is allowing this. This is like somewhat the kind
mm.
of appeasement that the Britain and like, the appeasement which Britain and France did to Germany while he was
It was like
occupying
racism
Czechoslovakia.
in the South. Yeah, it's like racism in the South, like from during segregation, right? Like the government didn't allow, it wasn't legal for black people to be lynched, but the sheriffs didn't stop it from happening, right? Like
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty sad.
like exactly. Like if
Um,
the government is not actively protecting the minorities, then the problems will just continue. I'm so sorry about this.
no, you're okay, bud. The only thing I could think of to where is that it will get better as your generation gets older. Like because I used to see a lot more racism when I was younger, a lot more. Like when I say a lot more, I'm saying I was at a restaurant in Georgia before where this white dude just went right to this black guy coming in and goes, "Get out of here, N-word," just like that, and just like whoa. And even my grandmother at a restaurant one time said, "Hey, N-word," to the waitress who was black to come here. And I remember my dad got so red, right, because he was so embarrassed, and he gave the woman $100 tip afterwards. Which back in the day, with inflation, was even more money. And I'm like, now I think about it, I'm like, oh, that's how that was fixed. My dad's generation was like, this is gross. We need to stop this. And then when I was growing up, it was sort of a non-issue. And now, even though all these people scream about racism, we are the least racist we've ever been in America, right? Like,
Exactly. The
um,
problem is that even though the common populace will like evolve and become better, become more civilized, the key positions of leaderships in political and administrative areas will be held by those for some reason who in private sectors would be deemed unfit to operate because of their age. It is normally these people above the age of 55, above 60, 70. They occupy the most influential spots in the country, and like they have vested interest in them. It is glaringly obvious that they work with propaganda in their minds. They have something against the plurality that exists in India.
and they probably and well, yeah, they probably definitely use then this Muslim issue to stay in power too. I would imagine. Like,
Exactly.
up, so yeah.
Exactly. Like that is so common. Like it is, like if now it is not even about, earlier the elections were about who is a good Hindu. So like as soon as election season would come, every politician would go to temple. And like recently in the state elections, all the chief minister candidates were like, Lord Krishna came to my dream. So the God has nothing better to do. God is visiting these leaders.
Yeah.
God, who's responsible for 1.2 billion people in India, he is visiting these chief minister candidates in their dreams and is telling them detailed plans on how to win elections. So that's what God wants you guys to vote for me. Where
No, that's
where have I heard that before?
that's
I don't want to become the chief minister. God wants it. Okay, new prophet. Here we go again.
that's amazing. I mean, it's just typical, I guess, of a democracy, though, right? Like people are going to find those spots in human nature to exploit, which is why I just respect those politicians that don't do that and yet are so popular, right? Um,
I mean, like after
even though,
elections, like you mentioned, like Trump, he did not accept. He was like, the election has been stolen. The election has been stolen. This is this is after every single election in India. In India, we use something called the
oh, really?
EVMs, electronic voting machines. So, like after every election, some politician will be like, this machine is hacked. Machine is hacked. This guy, who can't open his own Instagram account in his phone, is now claiming that an electronic voting machine, which is tested by experts all over the world, has been hacked. And why? Because I tell you, his own family had 12 members eligible for the vote, and he got 6 votes. And now this guy is
Must be the
screaming.
machine. Must be the machine, right?
It's a machine, guys. The people voted for me. I know. I am the chief minister. The machine is faulty. It's the machine's fault, guys.
Man. So I think it'll get better. Like, you probably never heard of George Wallace, have
No,
you?
no.
He was a presidential candidate in 1972. He was from the Southern Democrat Party, which was the racist party. And he ran on segregation, or maybe it was 68. Anyways, and he was the guy that turned the torn, or sorry, turned or coined the term, sorry, segregation now, or segregation yesterday, segregation now, and segregation forever. You know, and that was his campaign, right? And then you had another Southerner running, Lyndon Johnson, who was a big old Texan that passed the civil rights law and the voting rights law. And I just remember them debating, and Lyndon Johnson in his Southern accent just completely annihilating the other guy, calling him stupid, calling him hateful. Like, he wants to keep the races separated because he doesn't know how to make money, and he's stupid. I think he even called him retarded, because he would just say all these crazy things. And so I'm an optimist. I think India will have. I don't. I need to look more into Modi, but I think y'all will have some good politicians in the future. Like,
Narendra Modi is a very good politician. Like, he is an amazing politician. Narendra Modi is a very good politician. Like, I personally have no complaints against him, except for the fact that this kind of centralization of power has never been seen in India before. Like, even when I get good marks in my board exams, my parents will credit that to the prime minister. Like, it is because of the prime minister that you have gotten such good marks. So this kind of centralization of power is, like, if you are getting credit for every single good thing in this whole world by the media and by the people, you will also get criticism for every single bad thing. That is the problem. Like, nobody in India knows who the energy minister is. Nobody in India knows. So every single time there is a power cut, the first abusive that comes out of the mind will go to the prime minister. Petrol prices are rising, prime minister. Any problem that you have will be blamed on the prime minister, and that is bound to happen if you will take credit for every single good thing. He's a great politician. I'm not denying that.
Like, that's similar in America. Like, everyone's blaming Biden for gas prices, and if you actually look into it, it's not one thing. So, a executive order he first did in office that made it more expensive to drill for oil, but it's not him. It's inflation, it's supply chains, it's Ukraine, it's all this stuff.
Like, one of our veteran journalists had such a good take on this. Like, when the previous government was in power, so like, India has the best ways to protest, like very creative. So in order to protest for the petrol prices, at that time the petrol reached 70 rupees per liter, and today it is 110. It is way more. So at that time it reached 70 rupees a liter.
17 to 110.
Yeah, that was the difference. So when it became like that high, so what the BJP, like, at that time they were in the opposition, now they're in the government. So while they were in the opposition, this is what they did. Like, the top members of their government, they rode cycles, like bicycles, on the road with the media and all, to showcase that they are not able to drive in their cars. It was a form of protest, like, oh, petrol prices are high, we will ride our bicycles. So one of our journalists actually found that footage, and like day before yesterday he played it on his like show and said, I really hope that he still has that bicycle, because today the petrol is 110 and I see this guy is driving a BMW. I don't see him using his bicycle now.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So from the outside, I would say Modi seems very effective, right? Like, that's, I would say most Americans that know who he is would say, oh yeah, he's very effective, right? He's turning India around. That makes no sense. Like, he's confident, right? And then when Trump went over there, he had a lot of positive press over here. Modi did. But what we really don't know, what I don't know, is he a conservative? Is he progressive? Is that even a thing?
See, that's the thing. Prime Minister Modi has never actually had a press conference in his tenure. So it is very difficult to know what his ideologies are. And to be honest, most of India does not actually care. It is about
Okay,
what the
that's a
cabinet
good
and the
thing.
Supreme Court thinks, because the Supreme Court is the higher authority. So the Supreme Court has actually passed very good laws recently. So we have decriminalized homosexuality. We have given them all the rights. So when it comes to female rights, India is a very liberal country when it comes to female rights. But when it comes to the rights of the homosexuals, we might say that we are conservative. When it comes to religious plurality, we are very liberal. But when it comes to refugees, we might be very conservative. So Prime Minister Modi is a
Okay.
fascinating person as a politician. I admire him for the way he has taken control of the media and the key institutions. Our national security is way better than it was. Like every other month, there would be
Okay.
some bomb blast and people would die. That has stopped happening after 2014 when PM Modi came to power. Our national security has improved. Some vital infrastructure has improved. What has gone down is the economy, because I think that goes back to the firing of Raghuram Rajan. He was our like the governor for the most important bank. So the economic policies of this government has been a disaster. Like it's one disaster after another. So in
So are you saying it's Modi's guy or the previous dude
uh,
for
I
the economy?
I think it's the changes made by the Modi administration. Like he is the center
Oh,
figure.
okay.
Like he is the person on whom the camera is, but the shots are being called by the cabinet. And when we have
Yeah.
utterly incompetent and stupid people in the cabinet, then things are a problem. Like we, the current women and like, child development minister, like the education minister in our country,
Hmm.
uh, she like when she contested election for the first time back in 2014, she said, "I am a graduate from college." Okay, you're a graduate. The second time she contested elections, after that, she said, "I am just a school pass. I'm like, I just graduated school. Didn't go to college." And the third time, she's like, "Oh, I didn't complete school also. I'm just 10th grade. I have 2 years left of schooling to do." Everybody else has increased qualifications. She has decreased qualifications. And this woman is in charge of education. So problem is these kind of people who, like, they are the ones who have their signatures on key issues of the country. Prime Minister
Hmm.
has nothing to do with these things. Like it doesn't even matter if the Prime Minister is conservative, as long as the Supreme Court, as long as the administration, as long as the people of India are liberal, no Prime Minister can cause any harm. And luckily, PM Modi's personal ideology does not affect the country, at least now. But when the journalists do get a chance to interview him, the questions that these journalists ask is, what kind of mangoes do you like? How do you eat mangoes? Do you carry a wallet? Nation doesn't care about this. What the nation cares about is what are his economic plans.
You know, it's similar in America. Like for how many people got mad about Trump is like his effect on their daily life was like nothing. What the pandemic taught me was state governors in America, they're the ones that have the biggest impact. Our Federal Reserve, our bank has a big impact on interest rates and money flow, but like if you compare California to Florida with the pandemic, we actually have less mental health issues with our kids than they do in California right now. Um, our kids are doing better on math right now because they didn't miss school. Like it really seems that DeSantis keeping stuff open, which at the time he was getting killed for, saying they were calling him a murderer and all this stuff. It worked. Like our more people, my area before, it was like an urban area, lottie dottie. It's the number one place where all Americans are moving now. You can't get a house around here. Like the value of this home I have went up 100%. It doubled in value over the last 2 years. It took 20 years for it to go up like 10%. So, and it's not because it's special. It's not. It's because we're on the coast and everyone moved to Florida because low taxes, and no one's going to bug you. Our culture here is not to bug others about masks or stuff, right or wrong, right? Like, I'm not going to, whatever that is. Like, but, you know, we're blessed with a lot of sunlight, which kills a lot of viruses out. We're outside a lot. So it just seems that the pandemic was handled better by him. And he was able to really protect nursing homes as well. When you had Cuomo in New York sending sick old ladies with COVID from the hospitals back into nursing homes and then spreading it all around. We had such strict rules with nursing homes in Florida because that's such a huge voting block too. He had to get it right or he was out of office. That and then all the high death numbers were forged by this lady who's now going to prison. She was trying to make him look bad and she was writing fake numbers. It's like so wacky what happened, but my whole point is it showed me in this country it's all about your governor. That's who affects you and your local mayor. Like if you have a bad local mayor, your roads will be all messed up, your schools will be messed up. Like they make a big impact. Or they're not really mayors, they're county commissioners, they're called. And they can cause problems. So, but if they do, you can go yell at them if you want. I have before.
So it is
Because they never expect it. Huh?
like it is very common for children in the United States of America, like teenagers, especially 17, 18, 19-year-olds, to have so many things to consider in 2022, like these mental illnesses, and they are the ones who are taking part in mass shootings. How involved do you think, as a teacher, are their parents in taking care of their children? Like, do they leave all responsibility to the school, or are parents actually involved in their children's lives in USA?
Great question. So, unfortunately, there's an economic aspect to this. If you are middle class or upper class, the parents are always involved, sometimes too much. Um, we call them helicopter parents because they're always hovering around their kids. But they're really good parents. A lot of times, unfortunately, like our divorce rate's now over 50%, and we have a lot of single moms. And if dad's not in the picture supporting, this is where feminism sort of went wrong in this country is if dad is not around, because you need two incomes to survive in America, right? Like, because all the women entered the workforce and a lot of people don't understand why wages really haven't rose with our production levels. It's because we had this half of our population enter the workforce, and that's suppressed wages. So if dad leaves, she has to survive on just this. So she may have to work another job. So who's raising the kid? If dad doesn't care, right? If it's a messed up, that's the major, most common problem is this. So dad left, dad doesn't care. Dad might be an alcoholic. Dad might be on drugs. He's just not there. Mom's doing everything, or vice versa. Dad's doing everything, but they're working so much they let the internet raise the kid, TV raise the kid, and there are solutions to this because I've seen them and I've participated in them. It's community programs, the YMCA, getting these kids in and helping them. But there's kids that fall through the cracks and just get raised by the alt-right on the internet and get, then they start looking at guns, then they get nihilistic, and their brains aren't fully developed, or they have a mental illness and they don't think, they're thinking, I think there's narcissism involved, like, oh, I'll be in the paper or something, without really thinking, I'm going to go murder a bunch of people, right? Like, I don't think the worst element, maybe I don't know, that's me all speculating, but, and I'm not saying these single parents are bad parents. They're usually, they try their best, but how can you be a good parent when you're working 2-3 jobs, you're not around, and that's sometimes not their fault. Life, it's whatever parent ran away, right? Or ran into drugs. That's whose fault it usually is. But we also have a problem with orphans. Like, I'm doing summer school with these orphans, and I hate to say it like that. We call them foster kids.
Yeah.
I hate that word. I hate that term.
Hmm.
I call them orphans. I think it sounds cooler. And I tell them to say it because I tell them you'll get more sympathy if you say I'm an orphan. Like, so we privatized it in Florida,
Foster
and it
care?
didn't work out. Yeah, it didn't work out. Like, because they went cheap with it, or the company, they weren't regulated enough, and the companies took a lot of the money, and they weren't providing a lot of the homes, and they didn't have good homes for them to stay. So these kids were sleeping in offices on top of desks, like in cubicles. I was talking to them about it this week. I'm like, what? And then one office manager was a pedophile, and a kid had to sleep with a pair of scissors to stab the guy if he came close to him. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And it's really tragic. And all their parents, are either in prison or dead. It's really sad. And that's an area that we could do a whole lot better on. But they're actually not the school shooters. They're actually, I think, I tell them this, they're going to be fine because they've seen such adverse conditions. They know how to fight and get out of things. And we do give them a way forward in our society. Like, they get free college, they have a lot of people on their side. So there is a way forward. It's just our foster care system god awful. uh, but that showed me a lot too. So that's the main problem with the school shooters. It's the single parent problem, like, or they grow up with grandma. Like the kid that did the Texas shooting got kicked out of his mom's place and was living with grandma, who he then shot in the face. She survived and called the cops. Like, tough woman. So there was a disconnect somewhere where people weren't watching what he was doing. So what about India? Is there like any sort of those issues over there?
Like in India, normally what happens is marriage is like if you are getting an arranged marriage, which means like your family is uh, arranging for the bride and groom, then the divorce chances are very less because you settle for it. You just settle for it.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen children who were raised by single parents, but since India is a very affordable country, it is very economical. No matter how little money you make, you will not starve. You'll not starve here. So parents actually give a lot of time to their children. Actually, like India could actually use a little female participation in the economy. We are so like we could use that because at one point the children grow old, and after your child has crossed that age, you can actually like the females can join back in the economy and grow that. So it is a good start. Next room. My dad wants to turn off the air conditioner. Huh. It's getting really cold. So what happens is
Well, it was like, mm-hmm.
what happens in
I was
India
just saying it's like a double-edged sword. Everything's a double-edged sword, right?
exactly.
Like, women came in, that was a great thing, but then it messed with the wages. And if you were to get divorced, so what were you saying? I'm sorry.
It's fine. So what happens is when children are given so much attention by their parents, then they become sort of socially nauseated, and they also like freak out with
Oh,
social contact. Indian kids do not have that level of mental health issues which American kids do. Most of the problem which Indian kids have comes from watching a lot of Netflix or watching a lot of Bollywood movies or TV serials, soap dramas, because that's where you learn how to act. You don't learn how to act by watching your surroundings. You learn how to act by watching your screens, and what you're watching on screen is not real.
that's not necessarily a bad thing, depending on what they're watching. So
What they're watching is Korean soap operas, which is giving them false expectations for reality. If you're watching television and you're thinking this is what life is going to be, sorry to disappoint you. Most Indian kids are living in disappointment rather than grief. They're disappointed. Nihilism is less. They have lots of appreciation for their life, uh, but they're confused. Indian kids are very confused.
do you think there's any solution?
Lack of good role models, I would say. They need to realize what actually is the market all about, because for us Indian children, I think money is one of the primary concerns once you become 17, 18 years of age. And the reason you don't follow, like if you look at Elon Musk, for example, richest man in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what does he know? He knows about space, so aerospace engineer, and he makes cars. So you can either choose automobile engineering or aerospace engineering, and you can excel in those fields and become like him and earn a lot of money. You don't do that. What you end up watching is Korean soap operas. You spend all your energy, all your time looking good. So much of time and
Oh,
energy spent in looking good, and you are unsatisfied with your skin, unsatisfied with
yeah.
yourself. You think that you are worth less because you don't look as fair as those supermodels who have like dedicated teams just ensuring that they look good all the time. So when you're obsessed with these individuals, you're not following your role models. Your role models should not be actors. Your role models should not be celebrities. Your role models should not be models. These influencers. Choose the role model which has a skill, an attribute, and because these things you
Ye-
can acquire. Looks you can't acquire without wasting money.
Yes. Um, and I would say that's something when I was growing up, that's something similar that's sort of gone away is that, and it's called body, what we call over here is body dysmorphia, where you view your body as bad, even though other people don't see it that way. I actually had that in my head when I was a teenager. But the thing that you can grow out of that is just, yeah, you got to stop believing that or watching that stuff, right? Or seeing it for what it is. And then because there were all these people like stars or sports players that were like, oh, I'm all natural. It came out that they were on so many steroids, right? And then they were having these little surgeries. And it's like, oh, okay, this is all okay. And then you get to meet real people and get in a real relationship, and all that gets cured real quick. Um, but that's interesting. It's Korean soap operas. So, because I've heard about that, and it does exist in America. There's a very, very, very small contingent of people that do all this plastic surgery and to try to look a certain way, but they're usually trying to look like one of their idols. It's like Barbie guy or the Ken doll. He puts all this filler in. It's so gross.
Like,
But the majority of people, nah, you know.
like
That
these,
American confidence, obnoxious confidence, definitely still exists. So,
like it is good to like
I'm the best.
protect your
I'm
native
the best
identity.
looking. Mm-hmm.
It is
Say again.
it's very important to protect your native identity. Like the way you said, like America has its own pride in being American. It is important to protect that because like an economist defines my generation of people as generation nowhere, because when you don't know what to
Why?
do, see, there's something called social conditioning, which happens in every society. So if you don't know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
you do what others are doing. And the reason why you don't know what to do is that you were never allowed to make your own decisions and bear the consequences of those decisions. All your decisions were laid out for
Okay.
you during your schools. So when you don't know what to do, you do what everybody else is doing. And if everybody else is scrolling mindlessly, you will sit and scroll mindlessly. No ambition, no aim. Like I asked some of my friends, what do you want to do in life? They said, whatever is in trend, whatever field will pay me the most, I will do that. How will you acquire the skills for that field? The person who's getting those salaries, which you are looking and thinking, oh, this field is in trend. That field is in trend now, but that guy has been working on that field for the past 20 years. He has put 1 hour daily into reaching that skill level. You will not get that salary just because that field is in trend.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be. I mean, you can, but always changing fields. I had a cousin that did that. He was a genius, super smart, but yeah, not has any root. Has no. He should be like a rocket scientist, literal, like working with Tesla or SpaceX. But he just works at a gas station. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Just he got like a near perfect SAT score. So, and it's because, yeah, he didn't take, I think you have to take initiative. And there's different cultural aspects to this, but you have to take initiative to sort of figure out what you want to do and be comfortable with it and ignore what everyone else says. It's way harder said than done, even in America. Like what you're doing, like you want to be a journalist, right?
Yeah.
So and you're gonna go like moving forward with that is really important because you still don't know which way that will go. That can go in so many different directions, but you at least put your boat sailing in that direction. Like that's how I became a teacher. I liked history. I know I could talk in front of people and teach, and I just set the sail off it off, then thinking, okay, I might be a writer or something, and then this will pay the bills. Well, I sort of got good at it. Then I sort of enjoyed it, and then there was a time I didn't like it. It's like a career. It gets up and downs. So I don't know. Maybe there could be some national program. Like we have that issue too, though, here of people not knowing, and that getting some issues. Now, calling it Generation Nowhere, that's sort of mean, right? Because you could go back, well, what are you doing to help? You know, like,
I don't
hmm?
like it is somewhat natural because see, people have opportunities, they have the internet, they have the opportunity. If you are not doing something, the government is not at fault here. Do something.
Oh, so you're saying it's all the trends, right? I'm just gonna do the most popular thing.
It's like it's
Yeah.
not even like I would say if you have solid internet connection, you have a Wi-Fi, a laptop, a screen, you can learn a skill and you can start working. It's just that people do not want to. They feel so entitled here in the country that
Oh, okay.
it's the government fault. The government needs to give me a job. No, they don't. They don't owe you anything.
You're absolutely right about that.
Learn a
You
skill,
have to.
get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Entire country cannot
So,
work in white collar, no. Somebody has to do the blue collar jobs as well.
and well, that also happened in America. And what that ended up happening was pushing up blue collar wages so much that now all my like half my students are going straight into plumbing or this or that. Like I know this plumber, he's a millionaire because he does emergency overnight plumbing. And in Florida, we have limestone, which water goes through very easily. It's porous, and pipes always get messed up, right, during bad rainstorms. So if it happens at night and then sewage goes out in your place and it's on the floor, you have to call a nightly plumber, and they're going to charge you 4 times the amount. And it's just the way it works. And that's what he does. And he'll have to go fix, a bunch of crap at like 2 in the morning, but he gets paid. And when he told me how much he made, I was just like, what? So it's been interesting what's happened. But yeah, I definitely get your point. It's an initiative thing, but I also think that thing gives people opportunity.
Yeah,
Like the people
exactly.
that then do have initiative and just take the bull by the horns, that will determine who's who when you're my age, 10, 20 years from now, right? You know, and you're always going to have some sort of disappointment, like, oh, I could have been this or that. Because I was thinking about this, man, I could have did this or that. And then my principal wrote me a great letter about how well I did over this year and the impact I made. It was just awesome. Like, well, I guess maybe I am successful, and like, it's weird, right? When you get older,
It's a
because you
journey.
don't
Like
know,
it's not a
yeah,
destination. It's a journey.
you don't know your impact and it doesn't feel like you're making it when you are, right? No matter what you're doing. So if you're writing articles, you could post them out into the void of whatever, the internet, and it feels like, oh, no one's reading them.
Mhm.
But you don't know who it is,
Exactly.
right? And it could be some guy in America like this guy, or, it's so I think it's effort and, doing what you're doing. And if your generation does do that, then that's actually more opportunity for you and whoever else. Because I think you're in one of the bigger generations in India.
Uh,
Is that
I
true?
I am 18 years of age. I mean, like,
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up y'all's demographics.
yeah, sure. I'm one of the youngest right now. Like, I'm 18 years of age.
So what I mean is, like, my mom's generation was the biggest. They were called the boomers because they all were born after World War II.
Oh, the demographic dividend. Yeah, India has a lot of young people right now. I like not
Oh, okay.
not me, the 20 to 27 year olds. That they are the like biggest in number right now. We come second to them.
Oh, so y'all are second to them. Let me see if I can find it.
The demographic dividend of India.
Well, there's this cool little chart. Here, I'll share my screen with you.
India.
So let's see if I can find it here.
Yeah, sure.
So this is a great site. It's called zhan.com. He's one of my favorite authors. He does demographics,
Hmm.
books. Maybe he took it down. Let me see.
Hmm.
Come on, internet. There we go. Population data. There we go.
Yeah.
This is 2015.
Hmm.
So you're 18, so this is 7 years ago. So you'd be right around there. Okay. So this is actually the demography you want, the triangle.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so y'all are the biggest generation,
Yeah.
or about what close. Um, if you look at America,
It is.
ours isn't that bad. So 2015, so seven. So I'm right here, or like right there. So the millennials, so those are the boomers, and the millennials are almost as big. Uh,
I think the
so it's
worst. I think the worst demographic dividend right now is Japan's. They have so many old people.
and it's a good thing to watch. Oh, he does. All right, here's the future one. So this is what
Oh.
he predicts it will be in 2030.
Hmm.
So that'll be there. So let's see if he has Indias in 2030.
Mm,
No.
no.
He's coming out with a book. I don't see it. In like this week, that's going over future. It's just the future according to demographics. I think it'll be real good. So maybe something to check out. But
Yeah, it will be very
my whole
interesting.
yeah, my whole point is, you know, um, you have a huge generation, right? So there's going to be a lot of competition for jobs.
Exactly.
So this whole attitude might help you.
Like,
People don't have a destination. It does take time for people to figure things out because not everyone's going to be able to work from home at some cushy, internet job. But if you're getting out there and doing active reporting or um, writing good stories, that's I think you can do well.
yeah, I mean, the
Um,
problem with the Indian youth is that they spend half of their working age years preparing for government exams. So half of the competition gets eliminated right then and there. And the other, like when you're talking about private companies, the market, all they care about are skills. If you have the relevant skills, the company will pay for your car, for your food, for your health, for your house. The company will give you internet, whatever you need. Just get the job done. I know companies in the private sector, like my dad works in the private sector. Today I was looking at companies and they are willing to offer you every single thing if you can only get the job done. The thing is, to get the job done, you need to have practical skills, which the colleges do not teach. Lack
huh.
of skilled labors, that is the problem for Indian demographic, I would say. Like I recently did a survey
Okay.
where it was
Interesting.
mentioned that less than 2-3% of graduates are actually employable in the workforce. They are actually working on the latest systems that the market demands them to work on.
Yeah.
That is the problem. The education is outdated.
What does your dad do? If you don't mind me
He
asking.
is a UI UX designer, user experiences and user input designers. Very new field, very trendy. So
Mm-hmm.
lots of wealth pouring in.
Does he he works for a company?
He works in a private firm.
Okay. Um yeah, that's and with India, like right now, a lot of United States companies are leaving China.
Yeah,
And they're not all going to come back. A lot of them are coming back to the United States because that's just the trend. That's what this guy is all about. The Zihan, he's like, it's not political. It's like he just says it's happening, and things are going to change a little bit. But I do think India will heavily benefit from that because there's going to be set tech sector jobs that are going to be developed there just because it's such a big market
exactly.
and our democracy. And I can see, I think the United States is going to stop so much being, police of the world and more of a multipolar of partners. And we're only going to deal with certain people. And I think India is going to be one of them. If China's demographics are really bad. Um, so
Like I think
I'll go
India
see.
has good opportunity with foreign relations
Yeah,
because that is something the BJP government, like again, Modi government has done absolutely amazing. It is that they have made so many new, international connections, so many new foreign relations, uh, that we have a good opportunity. We have a good image right now, and like, although a lot of companies are going to Vietnam, but a lot of them are also coming to India. The only problem we face is our bureaucratic corruption. If we were to get rid of that, India
Yeah.
has the biggest opportunities for companies like Apple, Lamborghini, Ferrari. These companies can heavily benefit from not only Indian labor but from Indian services and from the Indian market, because we have the purchasing power here in India. It's just the bureaucratic corruption here is so damn high that companies don't want to set up here.
I remember you told me that last time, and I think I said something. Oh, a good leader will come around. I actually looked into like how America. I mean, every place has corruption. That's just human nature. But we had our major problems of it, especially about like 100 years ago. Um, and I was looking into what happened. It's a grassroots thing. It has to be the almost not the entire like a majority of society and self-reporting, and then public pressure to get rid like oh that's a bribe, and it's not just oh go get them, arrest them. It's disgust, like oh really you did, ew man, like so, like that attitude is like a
A
cultural
social
thing that,
boycott, sort of.
yeah, because I remember my great aunt, this my old southern lady, surprisingly wasn't racist, but she was in a Southern Democrat, but because she worked with, she was a teacher, and she worked at both the white and the black school back in the day. So she's was way older. Um, and I remember her talking about corruption and the sheriff who hated her, but was scared to death of her because she was so well respected in the community. And that guy was thrown out of office when um, the word got out, because she would talk about it. And then eventually it was just enough public pressure to where they were either going to dissolve the department, just eliminate it, or the guy would have to walk. And I'm sure he went elsewhere to do his corruption. But so it starts at the grassroots level. Now, how to actually do that, I have no idea. Right? That's the like problem solving thing for your generation,
Like,
right? Like
the thing with
maybe it's
India,
maybe it's journalists, right?
I mean, it could be like the thing with India is that corruption comes from the top to bottom. Like it does not start from the bottom to top. It comes from top to bottom.
Oh, okay.
So the top level officers will actually have the cops, like they will bring all the cops, and they'll say that in the end of this month, I want 50 lakh rupees. Now you guys arrange. So they will have fake arrests. They will harass people and ask them, stop them in traffic, and like collect money, and then because they have to give to their superiors. So that's how the system is working right now. But uh, fairly enough, the system, either the system will change or it will leave the best of its people. Like if the people of India think that they are not being treated fairly, they will migrate to Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam. They will migrate. So if you cannot create a safe environment for the best of individuals, doctors, the lawyers, the proficient people who have the means, if you cannot give them good and safe environment, they will leave the country. They'll leave.
Yeah, you'll be like Russia and the brain drain,
Exactly.
right? Like, um, because then your strength will become your weakness. Just as what happened to Russia. Like that
Exactly.
would be actually very bad for y'all.
So it's very important
Um,
for the country to actually realize the real issues. Right now, the entire country, like most of the country, like which watches the mainstream television, what they are doing is they are fighting an imaginary battle that does not exist. They're fighting Muslims.
yes. Yeah.
Why? I don't know. Like, they are fighting imaginary battles in the past. Some guys claiming that the Taj Mahal is actually a Hindu temple.
Well, it's just like this woke stuff in America. It's all silly. It's the Democrats, like I said earlier, they're just avoiding actually solving problems, and the Republicans are blowing it up too big because they're not doing anything, and they don't have any policies right now outside of a crazy Trump guy running his mouth on his bad social media platform. So yeah, it's just hopefully over time, just with enough public pressure and the media. So maybe the answer is the media, or it's going to be a complex combination of things.
Like one of the veteran journalists in India, Ravish Kumar, he said that the entire nation will change within 4 days. Within 4 days, the nation will change if the media actually started to do the work it was supposed to do. That's how long it
Yeah.
will take. But they will not, because they are doing for their paychecks now. It is easy for a media
So
organization.
why are the media companies doing that? Is it like money from the government,
Both,
pressure?
both. It's money from the government, it's pressure from the government, and it's easy. If you were to do a research, let's say I'm the owner of a media company, I have to do research on quality of water in schools. So I would have to test at least 100 schools and compare their pH levels, compare their nutrients levels, and then give lab test results, and then show it on TV that these schools in these districts have water quality of this. Why bother? Lay off all the reporters, get an anchor, make him wear a suit, and give him an opinion based topic. Will Modi government do better in 2024? Opinion based. And now call in 4 5 useless people. Call in one Hindu guy, call in one Muslim guy, call somebody from Pakistan. Who cares? Call somebody from Pakistan. And then
uh,
sit and talk. And
that's
people
a
do
bad
that.
thing, a bad trait you picked up from old cable news, and because that's what Fox and CNN does. Let's get two people and have them argue for 2 minutes, so the issue's not even covered.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Like,
I would say the positive is podcasts coming around, these
yeah,
conversations.
absolutely.
Maybe this is the answer. I call it the new media. I heard some cooler name for it, but it's like the new media or independent media.
Like,
Like
people
Rogan's
are actually like
podcast.
turning mainstream television off. Like, people are so fed up with this,
Yes.
they are turning TVs off. They don't. They just do not. Like, one of our stand-up comedians did this. Like, he is a very controversial stand-up comedian. He's known to make fun of the government.
They're
So
supposed to be. That's good.
yeah, and so he was talking to his audience, and he said, "How many of you are waiting for a political joke?" So a lot of them cheered, and they said, "I'm not going to make one." Then he asked, "How many of you have stopped watching the news?" And like they all said, "We have all stopped watching the news." Like, you all fuckers want me to watch it just so I can tell you a joke. You have stopped watching it, but you want me to watch it just to make a joke. I don't need to. They are the joke. You don't need to make a joke of the media. Like, like, it is so useless at this point. If the government decides to raise taxes on clothes, next day some TV anchor will come up and say, "Today we are going to tell you 5 benefits of staying naked." That is how bad it has gotten. The
So, is there
pathetic.
anything like? So, there's a good YouTube news independent news program that's solely funded by the subscribers. Like you can do Patreon,
Yeah,
and enough
we
people
have
did it.
those. We have those in
Oh, you
India.
have those?
Yeah, News
Okay.
Laundry, and like a lot of them. News Laundry is the most famous one. We have the Deshbhakt, which means the Patriot. These are independent journalists who like regularly cover important issues. So people are
Like
switching to
Substack.
digital. Yeah, monthly
Okay, good.
subscriptions and all those. They work. They work
Because
very
I
well.
think that's the future. Like, because there's no breaking out of that corporate mold. If you want, and I get it. If you want a steady job and this world's tough, but I think to make an impact, because that's freedom. It's hard to make it work. It's difficult, but I tell you, if you can make enough to survive, you can make, I think, an impact.
Yeah, and I mean those.
Um,
Why, like, don't these anchors get bored? Like, if I was an anchor like making so much money, I would get bored sitting in an air conditioned office all day, hearing two people argue. What's the point?
well, because you're smart. Like what you said earlier. These people are just empty-headed people that are just going to go into the closet and have an affair with his co-anchor. That's all he's thinking about. And he's just a mindless person. He's probably thinking about baseball when he's talking about Modi or cricket. Um, they're not thinking, "Oh, I'm bored." They're thinking, "Well, this is what it says. It must be true. I got to say it. Give me my money." And they're like brain dead. So that's the way it is here. Like, unless it's Fox News, those people are tactical. I'll give it to them. Like Sean Hannity,
Yeah,
he knows he's a good
like
propagandist.
I have seen Sean Hannity. I have seen Tucker Carlson. I have seen what is that guy? Uh, he's
Bill
also
O'Reilly,
a right wing conservative. John Oliver did an episode on him. He has his own podcast. He like shouts and yells a lot.
Joe Rogan. Oh,
No, Joe
Alex
Rogan is
Jones.
Alex Jones. Alex Jones. Alex Jones. Yeah, Alex Jones. He
Um,
was selling his protein or something like that. It's hideous,
don't ever, yeah.
hideous.
It has lead in it. But the thing is, I think they should have a voice just because you need to have that crazy, but you need to let people know, all right, that's the crazy. You can listen to it, but it's crazy. He's entertaining
Yeah.
because he's a guilty pleasure of mine. I like to see what the crazies are listening to. Same thing with Tucker Carlson. He's an entertaining guy, and
I love Tucker Carlson because he reminds me of like one of my younger cousins. The questions he asks, like, is this America? Who is the president? What are we doing? These are the same questions my friend would ask if he
yeah, he's
was
very
ever dead
smart.
drunk. Like if you get a person dead drunk, he will ask the same questions. Where am I? What are we doing? What is this country? Who is the enemy?
Like he's entertaining.
Yeah.
Hannity's more mean. He's more blah 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 sort of. But even on MSNBC, they have their people. It's just they're not as good. They're boring. Like Don Lemon on CNN, boring. Um, Rachel Maddow, they just whine. I would much rather have a conservative going, what's going on here? Blah blah blah. This is wrong. Like they're entertaining. That's like the left wonders why they lose the cable news sort of battles. That entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. Like
You gotta have someone.
if I were to ever watch something with my friends, like, even if it was to just make fun of it, I would not watch anime. I would like watch Fox and Friends. Fox and Friends is something like, because me and my friends are very aware about American politics, like at least more aware
Mm-hmm.
than an average Indian. We follow it with lots of interest, so we'll just turn that on and like make fun of it. We laugh. We'll make fun of it.
They are that Fox and Friends is ridiculous. You know what? I actually came across this Indian news thing that was very sort of conservative. It's like
Yeah.
yellow, colored yellow. It's a lady.
Okay.
And she was like, in America now, Joe Biden, not like that, a little bit of an Indian accent, but it was in English. If I can find the clip, I'll send it to you. It was well
Was it
produced.
Vion? Vion? Vion?
Maybe it has like a yellow, so it has yellow in its logo.
Okay, okay. It could
It's
be Vion or it
uh,
could be like OP India.
okay. If I find it, I'll send it to you because it was
Yeah.
like a lady in her late 30s, maybe early 40s, that was just like, Joe Biden is old. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's going to hurt our economy. We need Donald Trump back in office. It's just like, wow, this is like Indian Fox News.
People in
So,
India love Trump. People in India just absolutely love Trump. Like, and
well,
it's a
what
U-turn. In the starting, they all hated Trump. Like I remember the exact date. It was 8th of November 2016, because 8th of November 2016 is going to be written in history as the Black Day, because in the Eastern and Western Hemisphere, both the people were surprised by
Mhm.
what their governments have done. Like on 8th of November, the results were announced, and President Trump, like Trump, became the president. And on 8th of November, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he said that the 500 and 1000 rupee currency notes are no longer legal tender. So 80% of the money is no longer money.
That's right. You told me that. That
So
happened the same day?
yeah, same day, 8th of November 2016.
Wow.
And like, instead of getting worried about what is happening in India, Indian uncles were like, how could they select that guy? How could they select? Leave that. See what your leader did. Get concerned with he. That's the problem with American middle class. We are so concerned with America's politics, we sometimes forget we have our own country.
Yeah.
So at that time, people are like, Trump bad, this and that. But when he visited India, he took names of Sachin Tendulkar, and entire India was like, yeah, he is friends with Modi. Oh my God, he's great. Trump,
Um,
Trump is my
Trump
president.
he was very good at foreign policy. The left in America went hysterical to where it disgusted me how they acted, how they're still acting to a point. And they didn't realize how good he was at being a charmer. And also, he wasn't, if you were nice to him, you said, you know what, you're not, he would reciprocate and he would put over your country and say, oh, I love India.
Yeah.
It's the greatest place in the world. Great food, beautiful women. Like he'll say stuff like that. He knows how to get people on his side. He's a good politician. I never thought he would be able to do what he did. Like, that's why Saudi Arabia, we're having issues with them. It's Trump was over there and they loved him. And Trump loved them because he put his face on a big hotel. There's nothing he loves more than that. Or getting
it,
special treatment. I
it,
think in India they brought out dancers or something,
yeah,
and he was just like,
Indians love Trump. Like we have a temple for him. Like in India,
really?
yeah, we have a temple for Donald Trump. Let me see if I can.
I think I saw a
Uh,
news thing about that.
yeah, actually, let me show if I can like show you my screen right now. Can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Let me see if I can find that. I have that. I think I saw that article once. Yeah, see, uh, there are. See, there's this man who like adores Donald Trump to the point that there's an entire temple dedicated to
Yeah.
Donald
Okay.
Trump.
Okay. I think, yeah. I think he did show me this. I forgot about it. That's great. That is so
So
great.
he's garlanding him like okay, he's showing his love for the president, and I think he's offering him milk. Yeah, he's bathing the like bathing in milk is one of the things we do in the country to show respect and
Wow,
devotion.
that's fascinating.
So Indians
Donald
love
Trump.
Trump.
Oh man, and he eats so much McDonald's.
Like
You
if
know.
like this was Trevor Noah's bet on him. Like if he were to visit India, because he was going to be like when he was in India, he was offered a purely vegetarian diet. No non-veg food was given to him, and since we have cows roaming around in the streets, cows are sacred to us.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Trump could have been very, oh my God, why is my beef roaming around here and there? Why is it not in my burger? Cows,
Yeah.
cows are taking revenge.
So how did he do with that? Probably, probably did well, I would imagine.
I mean, like we don't honk at them. Cows are very playful animals. If you like observe them, they're very
Oh yeah.
cheerful and very playful animals. They don't bother us a lot. Sometimes they do get aggressive. But cows are a very political issue in the country. So like, but
So
normally
does
it's like
any
it's an animal. It's like a dog. You
does
go pet
any
him.
oh okay, that's probably a good comparison. So is any restaurant allowed to serve beef, or would it
Uh,
is that a law?
Buffalo beef is allowed. Cow beef is not allowed in the country.
Oh, okay.
So cow,
Buffalo beef is actually better,
yeah, so
but
cows are sacred. Cow beef is not allowed. Buffalo beef is allowed for like McDonald's, KFC, Tunde, like all of these outlets. They serve buffalo beef openly. But yeah, cows are very sacred to us. Cows.
because I always knew that, but I didn't know how it would be like applied in society. So it's just like because I know they had a riot at a McDonald's that had beef or something, and the vegetable
Yeah.
burger. People weren't very happy with that. So it's in the law.
Yeah, it's one of
Okay.
our. There's something in Indian Constitution called Directive Principles of State Policy. It's around Article 50 something. I don't remember the exact article. So Directive Principles of State Policies are our founding fathers' visions enshrined in the Constitution of India that this is what the state must do. And one of those directive principles is protection of milch animals and the cow. So protection of cow is essential for India as a country to exist. So we
Oh
have to protect
wow.
the cow. It's part of our constitution.
Senior wow, that's cool. I never knew that. That's interesting. And in America, we get a bad rap for just we eat hamburgers all the time. There's actually cows everywhere here. They don't really go in the streets or anything, but just north of where I live, like there's gigantic ranch, and they have the climate people after them now because they say they are bad, and they're actually not. If you look into the actual research, there's things that are 50,000 times worse than the cow farts. That was all bullshit. Anyways, um, and they're treated pretty, fairly well, especially the dairy cows. But they're treated well in America. They're not like pigs and or the animals that are treated the worst in America. The cows are treated well, and it's to the point that when I was growing up, there would be it was a thing to go at night into one of those ranches. It's a huge field and tip the cows over. That was
Oh.
a thing because they sleep and you just push them over and then you run and hope the bull doesn't chase you. Also, you would go out there because psilocybin mushrooms would grow out of their poop, the psychedelic mushrooms, and that was a very big thing in Florida. Is to go get their mushrooms and eat them. So, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
they're in Florida culture in a weird way because it's also why Florida is a big cow state. A lot of people don't realize that. North of Orlando, it's all cow fields.
So
That's
like
all it
lots
is.
of grassland.
Yes. And Jacksonville, from Jacksonville to Tampa, used to be the big cattle range.
Okay.
And they would drive cattle to Tampa to then, be produced and either shipped out or made and sent to because we have a big military base here too.
Oh.
Um, so it's a big, they're called Florida Crackers, and they're just Florida Cowboys. So like we're unknown cattle country. So it's just interesting.
What is the state of like vegans in US and Florida? Like, do these guys cause any significant problems? Do they cause hikes and protests in front of malls and
No,
meat shops, or do they like do
they
their own
used to.
things?
They used to, but now diets have gotten so individualized. Like, oh, I'm on the paleo this diet. I'm on the vegetarian. It's keto, whatever. It's so individualized, specific. Like some people swear by the all beef diet, just nothing but beef. I don't know how you survive, but whatever. And then some people do all greens. Like, I don't know how you survive either on all leafy greens. I think you need some sort of protein, maybe. I don't know, but they're still alive.
So
Um,
how does the government intrude at
they
all
let you do.
into what people eat? Do they have any control over what people eat in US?
No, outside of schools, and all they did was reduce our salt content and gave us limits. And instead of providing healthier food, we just gave kids less food, which is just ugh. And
Yes.
no, it has. They have to be safe, so they're tested for Any food is tested for salmonella. You can't sell raw milk. That's a no-no because you can get sick. Apparently, at least Americans can, but no one's really busting you. I can go buy some right now if I wanted to.
Okay.
It goes bad within 2 days, but it's really good. Um, so it's not regulated outside of the corporate produced stuff, but farmers markets and stuff, you get really good cheese under the table, the raw milk. So right now, I would say that's a very positive culture in America. There's no one yelling at each other really. You can do what you want. Um, the main protests are against people that abuse animals. Like if there's a slaughterhouse that's handling things in a certain way, that place could get firebombed if the government doesn't shut it down. Because you do get some animal rights people that get very serious, But that's not I wouldn't even say that's even close to being an issue. To each their own is the mentality. It's not like gender right now. That's the hot topic, or homosexuality,
What
So
wasn't there somebody who identified as an attack helicopter? Like, was it in the US or
I think it was some joke, right?
okay?
Like people are now taking that and making fun of it. So, because again, if you play with the definitions of words, you're going to get people that then manipulate that to throw it back in your face. So that I really do think I was wondering how COVID would shape things. It ended a lot of trends, and now new ones are emerging. I think we're going to be center right moving forward. We're going to be a little more in America, a little conservative moving forward because we're going to have to deal with all these world changes and inflation and oil and transitioning. I think personally, we need to figure out nuclear fusion, because we need something else besides oil, right? This is the time. It's time to innovate. Because with high oil prices, that's going to cause countries, even in America, in Appalachia, we're going to have to start using coal because it's too expensive to use other things, and that's going to make the environment even worse. So we're living in a time that is so historic, right? This
Yeah.
is a transitional time. So I think it's
Like,
interesting,
the thing
right?
with transitional time periods is that like people like me, especially, can't fully adapt with the new things like Snapchat and all. Like I'm figuring Snapchat with some of my friends, and we
Mm-hmm.
can't forget the nostalgia of the past, but we can't fully adapt to the advancements of the future as well. So kind of stuck in between the two things.
So I remember I used to feel that same way, but you will eventually see how advanced you really are compared to probably some adults. At the same time, you'll make the appropriate adjustments um, as you move into the future. I think you'll be just fine.
Thanks.
Um, like, you know, you have good communication skills and you just gotta just figure things out. And like, what do you want to do? What's your goal?
If I were to operate inside India, I would go with graphics designing. I actually see a lot of scope for it because India is going to have lots of good internet and people would want to advertise on the internet. I would work in that kind of media field where I help small businesses dominate the large, uh, internet spaces, online spaces. I want people to get off of Instagram, leave your phone screen, sit in front of a laptop screen because that is where business happens. Shift the commerce from
Mm-hmm.
social to sit in front of a MacBook. Don't sit in front of an iPhone. Sit in front of a MacBook. That is where business is happening. That is something I'm dreaming of doing to shift the economy to a formalized sector. Like,
Okay.
so if I were to operate within India, if I could get global opportunities and exposure, I would go with some sarcastic journalism kind of thing, like something that John Oliver does, or Jon Stewart,
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Noah, something like that. Like not full scale comedian, but uh, tell political stories, but with a sense of comedy in them. That is something I'm planning on doing.
I definitely can see you doing that. And I would just suggest practice writing like in that way, maybe, right? Like you don't have to show it to anyone. You can just, it's just that aspect. And I mean, you're already I think you're technically proficient. So coming from this old dude, all right,
Thank you.
like when you told me, oh yeah, your website was too expensive, and I looked into it, I'm like, damn, he was right. So you'll be surprised what can happen. And if you keep on, making stuff and you don't think you're getting enough views or something, it
Yeah,
doesn't mean you should stop, right?
exactly.
Like, because the negative self-talk can, I think, hold people back needlessly. And I say that because I think that happens to me. So I don't know. I just keep doing what you're doing. Life will work itself out. Um, and hopefully everything goes well over these
Yeah.
crazy, crazy times, man.
I mean, like seriously, things are like every single day something is happening. So much is happening. It's amazing to witness these things. We are witnessing history right now. Like 20 years now, the kids will ask us about the pandemic and then Russia, Ukraine, and Johnny Depp and Amber Hart and Chris Rock and Will
Uh,
Smith. Like things,
yeah, you're
things.
absolutely right. So I got to get going,
Yeah,
but it's
that's
always a pleasure to talk to you. I always learn so much.
yeah, me too.
Um,
It's absolutely amazing.
and I got caught up with things. I always say that, but let's try to do this again,
More certainly.
week or two,
Yeah,
and
definitely, definitely.
yeah, we'll keep up with it, Melee. And
Yeah.
you have a good week, man. Good luck with you have more finals.
Thank you so much, sir. You also have great day at school.
Do you have more finals?
Yeah, I have my finals from 20th of June all the way to
Okay,
5th. Yeah, so from 20th to
20 to
4th,
25th.
20 to 4th of July, like 10 to 15 days of exams
So from June 20th to
to July 4th.
July 4th.
Yeah, we have leaves in
Okay.
between, like it's not continuous. One paper, then 2 days holiday, then one paper, then 2 days holiday, something like that.
All right. Well, I'm just
We,
looking at this thing. I'll contact you on
yeah,
Instagram. We can talk
most,
sometime.
most
I don't
certainly.
want to bug your
No, no,
exams,
it's
but
not actually an issue. Like right now, my exams are going on.
okay.
I'm very chill about these things. Nothing big.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll contact you on Instagram, and it's always a pleasure talking to you, bud.
Same here, sir. Same here. Really appreciate the time you give.
It's always fun, man. It's always fun stuff. Great talking to you, bud, and you have a good night.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a good day. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
bud. See you later.
Bye bye, sir.
Bye bye.